Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to Let's Start Story on What If Naruto Gets Innocent Kaguya Pregnant. So do 4 blue hearts. Comment, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video, and please share with your friends and watch till end. Also check out Patreon, for I have upload Harry x Hermione uncensored spicy version, link in description. Fire loomed in the distance, showing how much destruction the nine-tailed fox inflicted on Konohagakure. Exhausted from fighting off a masked man that threatened not only his newborn, but also had the LLS to extract the 9 tails from his wife, Minato Namikaze's mind was racing. There is no way to get rid of the fox in a practical way. His wife, the now former Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, was now on the verge of death since it was extracted. She had a couple more minutes at best, a fact he was trying desperately to not think about. Looking at her, Kushina was just as desperate to come up with a solution. This fucking fox. Why must you do this to my family? There was only one solution, and he didn't want to do it. He had to seal the fox in his newborn son. His precious baby boy. He would be a hero, but as the 4th Hokage, Minato knew better. They would never give the boy the treatment he deserved, no matter what he was about to tell his wife. Kushina, there is only one way to protect He village. I have to seal the 9 tails into Naruto. Minato pre-flinched, knowing the wrath his wife, even dying, would deliver upon hearing those words. What the fuck did you just say? Kushina spoke those words in a monotone way, something so different from her passionate and expressionate tone. Minato knew he had to persevere through the shivers her words gave him. The 9 tails can't be stopped any other way. He will be a hero to the village and carry on our legacy. Kushina, I could never force this burden on someone else's family, but our boy, our strong son, he can do it, I know he can. Kushina looked up at him. But Minato knew how determined he looked right now. He could be just as stubborn as her in critical moments, and she knew that too. Fuck you for doing this, Kushina started to sob. But continued, I know, but please just let me see my baby in these final moments, please Minato. Tears started streaming down his beautiful wife's already exhausted face. Intense labor while holding back a demon, getting said demon extracted from you, and now forced to seal that very demon in your son. Minato started to shake just thinking about it. He clenched his fists and steeled his resolve though. Forcing back tears, he wiped a few from his wife's face. I love you too so much, you know that. We need to start. Not far away. A set of Rinnegan EYs stared at the 9-tailed fox in all of its glory. Madara, or Toby as he liked to be called, was standing only a few steps away watching the rampaging chakra creature. He was wounded and leaning against a tree, taking deep breaths. Pain was the first one to speak. So the 9 tails is free, but for how long? He was not sure about this plan, and was told that each tailed beast needed to be sealed in order. But one was right in front of him. Wouldn't it be foolish to not make a move now? Finally, Madara, or Toby spoke. We've forcibly extracted it out of the Jinchuriki, but the Hokage managed to do some serious damage. We should retreat for now and wait for a better opportunity to arise later. Pain, without looking away from the Kyuubi, gained a much darker aura. So you mean to tell me you have caused pain without a purpose? No direction. Only loss with no lesson is not why I agreed to work with you. I'm not interested in a shadow benefactor that doesn't know how to be prepared, Toby. Toba's Sharingan eye narrowed dangerously. And what do you plan to do? At that moment, golden chakra chains started to pierce the skies and wrap themselves around the Kyuubi. It buckled under the chains and started to collapse to the ground. Pain smacked his hands together. They mean to seal it again, Toby. You will make us wait for who knows how long, even though you've created this opportunity. I mean to take the 9 tails. Fool, you know you can't just seal it. There are steps. Shut up. I will be the god of this world and I will do things as I please. I will give purpose to the pain you've caused today. Pain then slammed both hands on the ground. Summoning jutsu. 200 meters away from the collapsed form of the Kyuubi, a giant wooden textured statue appeared. Its hands shackled together and held next to its face in a pleading manner, as if asking its jailer why it was being imprisoned. The blindfold over its eyes and gnashing teeth forever frozen in place. Its feet were together in a sitting position with its ankles shackled, a clear testament to all that whoever this was dangerous. Geto Mazo, Pain spoke in a monotone voice. But something happened, something neither Pain nor Toby expected. As soon as the Geto Mazo was summoned, the Kyuubi flared its chakra and tried to escape from its captor. The chakra, wisps of red, flicked at the Geto statue in fear. And the Geto statue opened its mouth and inhaled, almost as if the chakra was the first food it was allowed to eat in centuries. Pain looked on in shock as the statue suddenly woke up, as if breathing for the first time in its life, and looked with its eyes closed at the exact position of where the Nine Tails was. It started to stand, breaking its chains with a loud, high-pitched ching. It used a hand to help itself up, breaking its wrist restraints with another deafening ching. It then stood at its full height and started to walk to the Nine Tails. Almost instantly, the Kyuubi bristled and started to struggle. No! Get away! Let me go, humans! I will never attack anything ever again, but let me go. No, I'll kill you, let me the fuck out. Pain tried to call the statue using his Rinnegan, but immediately got a sharp pain in his head. Something was wrong, the statue wasn't listening to him. I can't control the statue. That's all Pain could say. You damn fool. You basically put dessert in front of it and you are trying to tell it to come back and have a damn salad. You possibly fucked up everything right now, and you better be ready for the consequences. Pain listened to Toby, but he was much more interested in what was about to happen. His partnership with Toby was still fresh and Pain wasn't fully committed to whatever the hell this plan was yet, so it was more interesting. Even if he could stop it, he wouldn't be honest to his partner and tell him that he had no intentions to stop anything anymore. Back with Minato, a claw came ripping through him and his wife. He would protect his son until his dying breath. He didn't know what kind of bullshit the Nine Tails was prattling on about behind him, but he couldn't turn around with a claw through his torso anyways. He was too committed at this moment. Kushina was saying her final goodbyes while Minato was flashing through hand seals at a fast pace before he dies. Reaper Death Seal. The Nine Tails still continued to shout. You fucking fools. That won't do anything against her. Honestly, fuck it. Seal me in the damn baby. You can seal all of me, just get me the fuck away fro Aok. All of a sudden, there was no struggle in sealing the Nine Tails, causing Minato to let the Reaper fade. The Nine Tails was willingly trying to get into Naruto. That scared Minato more than anything. Was something actually scaring the Kyuubi into willingly being sealed? Something isn't right, but I can't stop the sealing now. Minato struggled to turn his head and saw something that he would never forget. Aw fuck. No, please seal me faster. The Nine Tails had half of its body inside the mouth of a demonic-looking statue. Minato shook hard, causing him to grunt in pain from the claw. All of a sudden, an eye was opening on the giant statue. An half-lidded eye that looked directly at Minato sealing the Nine Tails, into his son. It looked directly at his son. All of a sudden, it rose its long, wooden arm and then stretched its disgustingly wooden and bony finger to reach over Kushina and Minato. And poked right on Naruto's stomach where the Nine Tails was being sealed. AF. Lash of light emerged from the baby's stomach and the long wooden hand retracted its finger, resting it on the Kyuubi's flailing head. Minato looked back at his son and saw a black diamond where his navel was. All of a sudden, the sealing happened faster. The gigantic wooden beast statue and the Kyuubi compressed and flew into Naruto's stomach, sealing them both in his baby boy. Confused, but still resolved, Minato made a gesture with his hand to his son's stomach. 8 trigrams seal. The symbol pulsed onto his stomach and Minato collapsed onto the floor with his wife. Kushina was dead already. Minato looked at his son on the sealing altar and saw the 8 trigrams seal start to fade, but it stopped and then started to get sucked into the black diamond on his stomach. He was shocked and had no idea what happened. He didn't want to leave like this, but his life was fading fast. I'm so sorry, my son, I think I have done something so much worse than I intended. If there is a God, I pray she takes care of you and gives you everything you need. The irony. Inside Naruto, all that was left was a red arm and clawed hand hanging out of its mouth. The statue choked down and swallowed what was left. Tea of the Nine Tails from behind the bars of the seal. A second later, the final swallow was heard. Gulp. Ha. A feminine and ancient voice reverberated through the halls of this young baby's mindscape. The ghetto Mazo's mouth opened with a small red tint of satisfaction above its massive, slightly open mouth. I was almost controlled again, wretched humans. Suddenly the wooden statue, satisfy. D from the massive influx of what was once its own chakra, started to morph. The wood creaked and transformed until its form sat on its hind legs. A large rabbit was now in the statue's place, it stretched its 10 tails and looked at the bars and then chuckled. The large rabbit reached out with a paw and touched the bars that symbolized the 8 trigrams seal and absorbed the seal. Finally, some semblance of freedom. I placed a karma mark on this vessel, so once the vessel is completely changed, I can shed this shell and leave it in here, and take this body. This is a newborn boy, psi, number T, something that could be spotted at first glance with a barely open eye. The rabbit started to morph again and shrink. After a second, long silver hair was seen going past a woman's feet. A long white kimono-like dress spanned her entire body, and her hands barely peeked out beyond large open sleeves. Horns sat on her head that peeked out of her hair like wooden rabbit ears. She opened her eyes to reveal 2 white orbs. 2 circular, trimmed royal-style eyebrows sat above with a vertical slit sitting between them, like a closed eye. The woman then floated forward and started to expand her recently acquired chakra pool around her. He is a baby with fresh coils, so I should be able to accelerate the karma extraction. The woman pressed hard outwards and forced the karma mark on the baby to mature and develop this young vessel's genes. On the outside, Naruto sat there on his altar, suddenly twitching in his sleep. Suddenly the baby started to cry out and stretch its limbs. The tanned skin on him started to pale until his skin shade was equivalent to the pale moon in the sky. Naruto kept crying while his bright blonde hair started to fade and change into a silver, going from the color of the sun to the ambient flicker of the stars above. Back inside, the woman was surprised how fast the gene extraction from the karma seal was progressing. But something caused the woman to freeze up. She reached out and touched something with her chakra. It was just barely there, but it was still there all the same. The woman immediately stopped what she was doing and had tears rolling down her cheek. I almost killed my baby, this baby, I feel the soul of my children within. The woman began to audibly sob and fell onto her knees in the mindscape. She felt the echo of Hagoromo, her son, her baby in this boy. The only difference was, this baby did not steal her chakra. If anything, it gave her chakra back. Because of the 9 tails chakra kickstarting her body, this child gave her sanity back to her. She was just about to kill this baby and take his body. This is the only child that has given and not taken away. Now this baby was about to have its mind assimilated. The woman stopped and tugged toward the karma seal. She broke the part of her reincarnation through the seal and kept the fact that it would give him knowledge. She would let the karma seal turn the boy 100% Otsutsuki, but he would be himself. He would be more her than even her sons she gave birth to. Not half-bloods like Hagoromo or Homura. This was going to be her genetic son all the way through. I'm so sorry, forgive me my child. Naruto is what they called you, correct? My name is Kaguya, and I am your mother now. The now identified Kaguya stared into the void of her child's void with a loving blush. Kaguya then sent some chakra through Naruto and sensed around the baby, not feeling anyone nearby. Kaguya huffed in annoyance. She was not about to let her son die like a stray in the middle of a destroyed forest. Her young prince was to live like royalty, but that cannot happen if he is never found. She then forced chakra out through his karma mark. On the outside, the baby Naruto, exhausted, laid asleep. All of a sudden, silver chakra started to seep from his stomach and formed a large ball above his sleeping form. Slowly, the chakra gained shape and turned into his new mother in a ghostly projection. Kaguya activated her Byakugan and peered into the woods in all directions. She caught the form of 2 figures in the distance to the east, one with Rinnegan eyes and one with a Sharingan. Kaguya scoffed at how far her genes had split to where the 2 dojutsu were separated. The 2 visibly flinched when they saw her look at them and they vanished. She then kept scanning and saw someone approaching rapidly from the west. An old human male in black. She felt a decent amount of chakra in him and considered taking it back from him. All chakra was hers, but she decided against it for now. Her son needed care. The old man suddenly broke out of the tree line and looked at her cautiously from a distance. His eyes gazed at her, then looked around at the destruction, then saw her son's old parents on the ground. Then the baby she was floating next to. This was going to take all day, and Kaguya, as a royal, was not one to wait. Approach. You will help my son, or return to the earth in ash. The old man seemed even more shocked and puzzled, yet approached slowly and carefully. When he was a couple meters away he stopped and stood in a guarded position. He locked eyes with her. Who are you? It seems manners have vanished in this era, too. Is it not common decency to introduce yourself before asking after others? Kaguya snapped in a dangerous, yet regal tone. The old man stayed quiet for a second, but then spoke. Ah yes, where are my manners? My name is Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konohagakure. May I please have your name, miss? What is a Hokage, Sarutobi? Kaguya asked curtly, ignoring his question in favor of her own. The Hokage clearly was more confused than before, but still responded. A Hokage is the leader of a village, the strongest shinobi in the heart of its people. Kaguya nodded, satisfied with this answer. It seems luck has not abandoned this child then. You will take my son here and treat him as the royalty he is. If you do not, I will know. If I know, then the tailed beast inside him will erase humanity from the history of this planet. Hiruzen was clearly taken aback by this declaration. Threat. Information. Hiruzen's mind started to race, calculating everything. The baby is the new Jinchuriki. Minato and Kushina are dead and I'm sure they sealed it into their own child, but who is this ghost woman saying that it is her son? But the baby looks more like her than them. This is your son here. May I at least know his name? You may. Naruto of the Otsutsuki. With how you use names, Naruto Otsutsuki. I understand the method of thinking you are struggling to use. So I will say this. This boy's birth parents are indeed this yellow and red pair. Kaguya willingly elaborated, waiting for what she said to sink into this old human's skull. Hiruzen took a second but nodded, knowing she was not finished. Due to a bond between us, however, she then gestured to Naruto. He is 100% genetically related to me. He is my son and will be treated as such. Hiruzen looked at Naruto, and almost by divine revelation, the young baby opened his eyes. Hiruzen's mouth hung open as he looked at white, clear eyes looking back at him. Naruto then giggled and cooed for additional cute points. Byakugan, the third Hokage muttered. Ah, so my eyes haven't faded into total obscurity over the years. You recognize our eyes? Kaguya asked, slightly pleased that her favorite trait was still around. Ah, why yes. The Hyuga clan is a clan from our village that is the bearer of the Byakugan. A very proud noble clan that prides themselves on these eyes. Hiruzen explained. Kaguya nodded approvingly, and I trust the Tenseigan have them as the strongest in this village of yours. Pardon my ignorance, miss. Tenseigan. The third had never heard of this dojutsu. But from what he could understand from this clearly old spirit was that it was some type of next stage, probably similar to the Mangekyo Sharingan. Kaguya's mood visibly got worse and she muttered something to herself about keeping the bloodline pure. So they only use the Byakugan they get at birth and never tried to go beyond that. Kaguya sighed, just bring my s onto them and he will eventually show them what the next step is. Kaguya's attitude was audibly getting more irritated the more this conversation drew on. As I said, bring my son into an environment that he will be treated honorably. Perhaps amongst these descendant Hyuga, and if I don't like how he is treated. Kaguya left this threat open-ended, just to reiterate what she said when they started. Hiruzen took a second, yet nodded all the same. You still have yet to name yourself, miss. Kaguya giggled, a sweet bell-like noise. If I were to give you my name, humans of all creeds and custo, Ms. would come to kill you for that knowledge. Just know I am an Otsutsuki. That is all but my son are allowed to know. After this statement, Kaguya's form started to flicker into chakra and went back into the diamond mark where the baby's navel would be. Hiruzen closed his eyes for a second, or maybe much longer. He was brought out of his thoughts by the coo of the baby Naruto. He opened his eyes and looked back into the cute baby's moon-like eyes. The third Hokage sighed, but then smiled. It looks like you may have a home and family yet, my boy. Hiruzen then gently wrapped the baby in the blanket around it, picked him up. Then walked back to Konoha. -45 minutes later. Hiyashi Hyuga was now finished handing out emergency rations to the branch family members that helped fend off the Nine Tails. The village was in disarray. But the Hyuga compound was largely untouched. He made it into the main living area to rest for a second. Truly a miracle from Kami. The last thing he wanted or needed was his pregnant wife, Hifumi, to be injured. She was getting close to the time she would deliver, and the stress from the attack surprisingly didn't make her go into labor either. Nothing else old happened to make the silver lining on this day brighter. A branch Hyuga suddenly knocked and entered. Lord Hiyashi, the third Hokage, is here on an emergency. He seeks an immediate audience. I jinxed this good moment, didn't I? Escort him here. Hiyashi gestured him away. Lord Hiyashi, he is already here. The branch member ran away after this revelation, seemingly knowing he would have been chewed out if he stayed. The sound of the third Hokage walking into the room echoed. Hiyashi, I have some strange news. Whether it is good or bad is something you must decide. Lord Third, you walk in, no pleasantries. And tell me the most ominous things. Hiyashi couldn't help but chuckle at this. The third Hokage chuckled. I apologize, I'll elaborate. First, however, I have to ask a question, as this will determine the validity of the rest of what I have to say. The clan head raised an eyebrow. Please ask then. Does the family name of Otsutsuki have any meaning to you? The third asked. Hiyashi Hyuga thought for a solid half a minute, but then his clan history came to mind. Ah, yes. The Hyuga clan is actually descended from the Otsutsuki. Our ancestor is Homura Otsutsuki, the brother to the Sage of Six Paths. It is partly the reason of why we consider our clan respected. Hiruzen thought, and then spoke. So the Sage of Six Paths' family name was Otsutsuki if Homura Otsutsuki was his brother. Hiyashi nodded. That would be a sound assumption. Hiyashi just now noticed the blanket with something in it sitting in the third Hokage's arms, but before he could ask, the third continued. Would you have any physical descriptions of your ancestor? Hiyashi was starting to feel uncomfortable, but the opportunity to enlighten his former Hokage of his heritage is something the elders would actually compliment him on. Please follow me to the Hyuga council room. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything, instead opting to follow Hiyashi. The clan head walked through the compound for a couple minutes before standing in front of a decent circle-shaped building farthest away from the center of Konoha. He slid open the door and saw the Elder Council all sitting there in their spots, discussing the recent attack and how it will impact the Hyuga. One elder turned and saw Hiyashi escorting the third Hokage. Ah, Hiyashi Dono, third Dono. May we inquire as to why you've visited us? It is very unusual for a Hokage to come visit us. Hiyashi spoke first. Lord Third would like to know of our ancestor, Homura Otsutsuki. He asked for a physical description of his visage, and the first thing that came to mind was our tapestry. Hiyashi then gestured to the sprawling tapestry against the wall. Descorit ng the area above the council. The council made an audible noise in Rivera. NCE for their ancestor, and they all looked up at the pictures. Another elder spoke. We thank you for taking interest in our clan, more than any other Hokage. For that, you have earned a great deal of respect from us. He gestured towards a picture in the middle of the tapestry, of a man standing on the moon. The elder gave Hiruzen some time to take a look, but his eyes locked onto another picture in the tapestry. One of the same man, and what he assumed was the Sage of Six Paths sealing a woman into the moon. Long silver hair, horns, white dress, white eyes, but with a Rinnegan with Sharingan Tomo on her forehead. His first thought, aside from the third eye, this was 100% Naruto's mother. The elder then began the description of Homura. Skin as pale as the moon, hair as silver as the stars that speckle the sky. Byakugan stronger than any seen today. And the last name of Otsutsuki, the family name of the rabbit goddess. None can use this last name unless she herself bestows it on you. It is the reason why we are the Hyuga, and the reason why there is the Uchiha and Senju. Do you know the name of this rabbit goddess? Hiruzen prodded to see if he could get her name. Unknown to him. Kaguya giggled inside Naruto's seal. All of the elders shook their head. Her name is lost to time. I apologize, as she would be our ancestor too. This knowledge is something we believe Homura did not pass down. Hiyashi nodded and looked back to Hiruzen, who was staring at the blanket bundle. A bundle that was wiggling. A bundle that just cooed and giggled. Forgive me for not asking earlier. But may I ask, who is the child you are holding? The third sighed, but smiled again. Naruto. He took another breath. Otsutsuki. Hiruzen then turned the child to face Hiyashi. Moon. Pale skin, silver hair, bright white Byakugan. Hiyashi would have fainted if 3 of the elders didn't beat him to the floor. Sarutobi then spoke. This, rabbit goddess, told me to bring him to you, to treat him as royalty. Hiruzen sighed. This is also an S-rank secret, but the boy is also a Jinchuriki. I'm having a weird feeling that it isn't the 9 tails, however. His seal for that is gone and only a black diamond remains. As for emphasis, he undid the blanket slightly to show the diamond to the non-fainted members and Hiyashi. Believe it or not, she didn't disappear exactly, the chakra she was using to project herself went back into his diamond seal when she was done threatening me. The elders all awed in reverence of this baby. But something was off. She threatened you. She saw it that her son must be treated like his station of royalty, or the tailed beast inside him will end humanity on the planet. She also said she'd know if the boy was treated poorly. The elder scoffed. But for a very different reason than what Hiyashi or Hiruzen thought. Of course he'd be treated as such. If he is the rabbit goddess's son, that makes him as pure-blooded as Homura. He will be raised as the new clan head. With him marrying any Hyuga, that would be more pure than the main branch. We hate to say it, but if he were to marry out of the clan, his child would still be the most pure-blooded in centuries. Hiyashi stared wide-eyed at this. You all really believe this? The elder replied as if it wasn't even a thought. Yes. In my honest opinion, Hiyashi, he could tell us to kill OU. Elves, and we would do it with joy in our hearts. The other elders thought about it for a second, but then nodded their head in agreement. Hiyashi finally realized why this damn group of elders were a pain in his ass. This type of bloodline fanatism is the reason why everyone thinks we are creepy. I see it now. Hiyashi sighed and just accepted what was happening. Okay, I will raise the boy as if he was my own son. But no, I have a child on the way with Hifumi. I highly doubt she would complain to my child having someone to grow up with. The elders all nodded their head in agreement, but the third had one last thing to say. I'm glad he will get a good life, but my deal for doing this is to not disclose his Jinchuriki status at all costs. You may tell him when you feel he is ready, but at no time is his status to be known. There is no known seal, so it should be hard to notice, but I guarantee his appearance will draw attention. His mother has horns for Kami's sake. We accept. The I've mind of elders all responded at once. We will teach the boy how to hide them if need be. Naruto just giggled and cooed. Hiyashi finally took Naruto and looked at him up close, noticing how cute the little boy was. He's going to be troublesome when he's older. Hiyashi smiled and used a finger to play with the baby, who kept giggling and getting cuter in his eyes. Hiyashi shook his head like it was some type of magic and mentally prepared for the very soon moment of introducing his wife to a baby they are going to be raising. It's been 3 years, and surprisingly, Hiyashi has no issues raising the Otsutsuki prince. He was an adorable little boy that always tried to be overly formal. That alone would have been cute, but it made it even better with the fact that Naruto sometimes stumbled words that were clearly too big for his mouth. Hiyashi knew that formalities were beaten into the main branch, but watching his behaviors and mannerisms, it was almost like the kid had a sixth sense for being a royal. He knew Naruto would never admit it, but Hiyashi was mostly sure that the boy was talking and getting lessons from his bunny mommy, a name he heard the boy say in his room when he thought he was alone a couple days ago. Flashback. Hiyashi was walking the halls of the main branch house when he heard giggling from Naruto's room. The clan head rose an eyebrow and creeped toward the door, careful to not alert the boy with strong Byakugan. The sound of the young boy's laughter was perfectly clear as Hiyashi stood by the door listening. Naruto finished with his tiny laughing fit and started talking in a hushed tone. Don't worry, bunny mommy. I'll be perfect and make you happy. The boy let loose the brightest smile and hugged a small open scroll. On it was a portrait clearly drawn by the boy of what he had assumed to be the rabbit goddess. Bunny mommy. Hiyashi had to hold in laughter, but what struck him as weird was that the boy seemed to still be talking, as if in a conversation. I understand, but the ash bones make me feel strange. Celestial chakra is clearly an enigmatic ability. Clearly the boy knew what he was trying to say, but his tiny mouth was struggling to say celestial and enigmatic. How cute, a female voice fawned from the other side of the doorframe, peeking in with him. Hiyashi quickly looked and saw his wife, Hifumi, looking into the room as well with a look like the little boy was a stuffed animal waiting to be squeezed. Hifumi was pregnant again, looking ready to deliver at any time now. Her eyes, however, had deep black marks underneath them as well as her face looking emaciated. She was getting sicker. Slowly they stepped away from the door and Hiyashi held onto his wife's skinny hands. My love, you must lay down. You are not getting better and I fear for you. Hiyashi implored with all of his heart. Hifumi smiled and started a slow walk with Hiyashi back to their room to lay her down. I can't help it, dear. Naruto is so precious. He and Hinata are inseparable at times, and it makes me want a boy of my own. In fact, Naruto was most likely the reason why Hifumi was pregnant again. After pampering the boy and seeing his interactions with their daughter Hinata, Hifumi practically begged for another child. She wanted her own little boy that would look up to Naruto. Another little boy to love and squeeze. And what will you do if it's a girl? Hiyashi smiled at his silly wife and obliged to her fantasies. Hifumi put a thinking finger on her lips and looked up, she then smiled. She would be another beautiful and precious daughter of mine. I'd love her all the same and I could see more cute interactions with Naruto and my new daughter. Hiyashi could understand this, but suddenly he started to sweat when he saw Hifumi's loving smile turn into a sinister smirk. She was still a Hyuga, and all Hyuga had the same shit-eating grin when they were planning something. And if she wants, she can marry Naruto too, along with Hinata. I don't see them finding anyone better anyways. She then flipped her hand carelessly away as if disregarding any other possible suitors. Hiyashi would have done a spit take if there was liquid in his mouth. What are you talking about? Sure, Hinata would be in the running, but you'd put both of your daughters up to him. Hifumi's eyes became stern as she looked at him, and her voice darkened. So you would have one of our daughters be a political tool to a diplomat, or have her commit incest with your brother's son. Neither daughter will be clan head as long as Naruto is here. And he's not going anywhere if I can help it. That gives our children no power, destined to wear a caged bird seal or destined to be sold off to another clan. That will not happen. Hiyashi's face became washed with worry. Not thinking of these issues. His wife was always the better planner and could see these issues long before he could. I understand. Hifumi's face brightened up as they made it to their room. Good. Now go handle your duties. I need to take a nap before I have to use the restroom 50 more times in a row. Hifumi chuckled as she sat and then laid on the bed. I'll be back later to check on you, my love. Hiyashi Sofly smiled and closed the door. Flashback end. Today is the day of Hinata's third birthday, Hiyashi thought to himself with a smile. The event was going well. Hinata was in the yard playing with Naruto as the adults all talked in the living quarters. Not only was his daughter's birthday today, but today was also the day that Kumogakure signed a peace treaty with Konoha. Truly a fortunate day. Kami bless us. After some drinks, the Kumo delegate that was invited took his leave. Hiyashi, Hifumi, and Hazashim Hiyashi's brother were all not seated having a nice conversation to themselves. Hazashi, face slightly darkened with the blush of alcohol, chose to break a small, comfortable silence. My son, Neji, seems to enjoy Lord Naruto. He told me the young Lord told him some interesting facts about our Byakugan. Hiyashi raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what were these facts? Hazashi took a deep breath. Did you know that the Byakugan had another stage? Nay, I wouldn't stop talking about something called the Tenseigan. Hiyashi, caught mid-drink, spat alcohol all over the coffee table that divided the two couches. The what? What the H.K.A. Shink. The Su. ND of the sliding paper door slamming open drew the attention of everyone in the room. What they saw was a small boy in a white kimono, silver hair draped down his back and framing his face. They saw dirt on the boy, Naruto. But noticed a scowl on his small androgynous face. His tiny, regal eyebrows pinching together as much as they could. One hand gripped the door, and attached to his other arm as if clinging on for dear life was his terrified daughter, Hinata. Hiyashi-san, we have a problem. Please follow me immediately. For once, the young boy didn't care to offer pleasant formalities. Something was definitely wrong. Without asking any more questions, both Hisashi and Hiyashi got up from their couches and followed quickly after the boy. Hiyashi looked at his daughter, slightly shaking, but matching Naruto's pace in desperation, refusing to let go at any cost. What has happened, young man? Hiyashi's voice was stern and he'd get his answers. Please, just follow me and I will answer any questions after I explain. Naruto's voice was quivering, but the resolve to show what happened kept his tiny legs moving. Hiyashi stayed silent until they reached the outside of the compound, the part of the compound with its back against the woods. On the floor next to the compound wall was a torn sack and a large pile of dust, ash. Some pile of refuse. What is this, Naruto? Naruto, stop. Dian used his other hand to stroke Hinata's hair as he pulled her closer. Hinata's grip went from his arm to his chest, still refusing to let go of the boy. Silent sobs were heard from the girl. The Kumo representative, he tried to kidnap us. Naruto caught his breath and stood firm, but you could hear the emotions in his voice. I held on to Hinata while we were in the sack, and when I felt him jump, I stabbed through the sack. Naruto then pointed to the pile of ash. That's him there. Naruto looked up at Hiyashi with worry in his eyes, but also a silent anger. He tried to hurt us, Hiyashi-san. He tried to take us. I did the only thing I could. Am I in trouble? Naruto's eyes began to cloud with tears. I killed someone. Naruto began to start bawling tears. Hinata starting crying louder and hugged Naruto tighter, and Naruto returned her hug, openly crying now. Snot started to run down his face as he looked up at Hiyashi. Bunny mommy said I did the right thing, but I don't want to get kicked out. I love it here. I love you and Hifumi-san, and Hinata-chan. Please don't make me leave. Hiyashi felt his heart crumble. This boy just had a traumatic experience, but he was more worried about him rightfully protecting himself and his daughter, and how it would affect the Hyuga clan. Hiyashi turned to look at the pile of ash, and then back to Naruto. Hiyashi took a step forward and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, looking him in his eyes. Naruto, you won't leave us. Don't worry. But I need you to tell me what you did to this man. Naruto nodded and took a second to collect himself. He then freed a hand from Hinata's iron grip and held it up. Hiyashi-san, please don't touch this. You will die, so please don't. Suddenly, a pure white bone rod started to emerge from the small boy's hand. This is an all-killing ash bone. A Keke Mora from Bu my mother Atsushuki. Hiyashi caught that, but this wasn't the time. As the name says, it kills everything it touches. That isn't celestial and turns it to ash. Naruto then retracted the bone back into his hand. Hiyashi then picked up a stick, walked over to the ash, and started poking and shifting through it. He was looking for anything. Bones, clothes, nails or teeth. Nothing. It was all turned into absolute ash. No evidence. Kami truly has blessed us. Naruto. Hinata. Hiyashi looked at the two. Naruto looked directly at him and Hinata peeked an eye from his chest. You two saw or experienced nothing tonight. You never saw the Kumo ninja, you two were playing the whole time. Do you understand? Naruto's eyes zoned out for a second. Hiyashi assumed he was talking to his mother since this wasn't the first time he did this. He assumed she was explaining why he was told this. Suddenly Naruto's attention came back to Hiyashi and the boy nodded. Naruto then looked down at the girl in his arms. Hina. Hinata looked up with a tear-stained face, eyes full of trust for the boy. We can't tell anyone what happened tonight, okay? The clan will get into a lot of trouble if this mean man's village learns this happened. We are okay and this won't happen again, but from now on, you stay close to me, okay? Hinata visibly thought about what he said and gave him a sad smile. I won't say anything, Naru. I'll stay next to you always. The little girl hugged him tighter, causing Naruto to stroke her hair. I'm tired, Naru, can we go to bed? Naruto smiled. Of course, let's go home, okay. Hinata nodded and they walked hand in hand back to the main house. Hiyashi couldn't help but smile at the sweet interaction. For some reason, Hiyashi felt happy inside that his daughter wouldn't become the clan heir. He couldn't imagine what the pressure would do to his daughter. Hiyashi felt Naruto would weather any storm, if it meant to keep his loved ones safe. A comforting thought. As soon as the two kids disappeared from sight though, both Hiyashi and Hizashi's face went cold. Hiyashi looked towards his brother. No one will ever know of this. Of course, brother. Hizashi nodded sternly and the two brothers started to spread the ashes across the woods. -3 years later. It's almost time to start at your academy, son. Naruto's mother echoed in his head. Indeed, I'm actually looking forward to meeting others that aren't Hyugas. I am nervous about meeting others my age, however. Naruto thought back to Kaguya. The young boy usually talked to his mom whenever he was meditating and drawing in chakra, molding it into his celestial chakra. Fu, that's probably because you speak like me. A side effect of having some of my memories. Kaguya knew exactly why the boy was too formal for kids his age, but she'd have it no other way. Her cute son was perfect just the way he was, and him talking like the PR. He was made her feel even more motherly to the boy. Sigh, you are correct. To be fair, I'm actually worried about Hinata, she's been getting more outspoken. Naruto scratched the back of his head, wondering how the shy little girl started becoming a firecracker. That event 3 years ago changed her and he didn't know how entirely. Naruto could feel her smirk. You mean Hina? You can use your nickname for her with me. I've been witness to everything you've done. Fu, she simply is making sure no one goes near her man. She knows how composed you try to be, so she became the outspoken one. It wouldn't surprise me if she started trying to seduce you despite her age. She knows she can get away with it too, considering how much you dote on her and protect her. I made a promise to keep her safe. As long as she doesn't hurt me, what she does to others is of little importance as long as she doesn't embarrass the Hyuga. Naruto didn't even understand why he was trying to justify himself. Enjoy it while you can. We have many things to do in the future. Your lessons should be finished soon, and then you can plant a god tree if you'd like. Then you can have a Rinne-sharingen like your dear mother. That is the only way to fight off the other Otsutsuki that will eventually come. Kaguya always made sure to remind her boy that there were bigger fish in the sea. Isn't it possible to bring one to our side? Or create another Otsutsuki? Naruto pondered this thought for a while, but chose to vocalize it. Kaguya, upon hearing this question, laughed harder than she had in, most likely ever. My son, those snakes are not to be trusted. And I've already wasted my karma seal on you, so there is only one more way to make more full-blooded Otsutsuki. Kaguya's voice suddenly gained a sweet tone. When you are older and practice with Hina, we can talk about making more Otsutsuki. We can make an entire army of them if you'd like, I wouldn't mind. Naruto thought for a second. Why do I feel like there was a hidden meaning in that? Kaguya giggled. Think my boy, I know you aren't as dense as you are trying to act. Naruto blushed heavily and stood up to do some physical training for the afternoon. That's very immoral, mother. But you didn't say no, fu. With those words, Naruto shook those thoughts out of his head and left to go to the practice area in front of his main branch building. He stood in the middle of the area, looking around for Hinata. His long silver hair gently ruffled by the wind. Kaguya taught him a technique on how to use his hair as an extension of his body in combat. So it felt almost wrong to cut it. After not seeing her for a couple minutes, Naruto squinted his eyes and activated his Byakugan. His eyes could see much farther than a Hyuga pair of Byakugan. He glanced over the village and saw the signature he was looking for. She was in a small outcrop of trees, along with 3 other signatures. He saw her chakra flare and Naruto got nervous. What am I gonna do with her? I take it you found Lady Hinata. Naruto turned and saw Hizashi's son, Neji. Indeed, care to go for a run with me? It appears we will get in some exercise on the way there. Naruto then sighed knowing he was about to either watch Hinata threaten someone or he would have to defend her honor. Why not? Neji began, but then got that signature Hyuga shit-eating grin. You wouldn't think such a young boy right would be wrapped around the finger of Hinata. Naruto was very aware of how androgynous he looks. His mother's genetics were too damn strong and Hifumi would constantly try to put him in makeup when she was still around. A fact that Neji, Hiyashi, Hizashi, and even sometimes Hinata would never let him live down. His small IBROWS he got from his mom didn't help the royal princess look either. Just admit you're gay and move on, please. This was the only thing Naruto would say, knowing that Kaguya was already laughing in his mindscape. Any more out of him would just embarrass him further. Neji's eye twitched as they ran off to Hinata. A few minutes passed and they found Hinata standing her ground against what he assumed were bullies. The fattest one in the middle spoke. "What are you gonna do, you freaky-eyed bitch? There are 3 of us, and we'll say whatever we want. If you insult my eyes, you insult all of the Hyuga clan. You'd insult Naruto-kun and for that, I'll beat your ass." Hinata spat back at the boy. Mother above, where the hell was she learning to talk like this? The fat one fired off again. "Big talk for a pipsqueak. We'll see if you bark loud when we beat you into the ground." As tough as a facade Hinata was putting up, Naruto saw a sliver of fear in her eyes. She was still the same inside no matter how she acted. Time to step in. "Hina-hime, you're late to practice. Can I ask why you are out here among the filth?" Naruto didn't actually feel that way, but he needed to intimidate this generic pack of bullies. Unfortunately, most of the insults he knew came from his mom and the Hyuga, which was all about belittling others. It did get their attention rather quickly though. Hinata's face lit up in happiness as she used the distraction to dart into Naruto's arms. "Naruto-kun, I just went to get some things for dinner, and these guys insulted me. They called me ugly and bug-eyed and blind because of my eyes and—" Hinata was going to keep going but got interrupted by the scrawny bully. "We didn't say all of that. We insulted her eyes, but don't make the rest of that up, you crazy little bitch." It almost seemed like the bullies were exhausted already. Naruto knew Hinata was trying to get him riled up so he'd beat these kids up. And it was kind of working. "What do you have to say about the eyes of the Hyuga, exactly?" The fat one chimed in again. "You 2 bitches brought your boyfriend to fight your battle for you." He pointed towards Neji. Another girl joke. Naruto's eye twitched. Instead of being insulted, Neji lost his composure and started laughing hard on the ground. "Ha ha ha. See, even others think you're a girl, you don't even need makeup. Ha ha ha." Naruto's eye twitched even harder. "One more fucking word." Hinata reached up and gave Naruto a peck on his cheek. "Don't worry, Naruto-kun. I think you're manly." Naruto started to calm down. "This bitch wants to be manly, ha ha ha. Maybe fix and grow your fucking eyebrows, princess. Then maybe you'll be manly." The fat one laughed even louder. "Fuck it. Listen, you little shit, I hope you aren't from clans because there is going to be a lot of paperwork for your parents to get your ass out of the hospital." Naruto pulsed his chakra, feeling his eyes burn for a second. It was his second time doing this, so he wasn't used to the feeling yet. Hinata looked at his eyes morph into a faint, glowing blue iris. A bright white lotus was displayed with a light blue dot in the middle, signifying his pupil. He did it again, Neji ni. Hinata jumped back towards Neji, while Neji only looked to see what would happen. No sooner than that, Naruto raised his hand and felt himself pull the poor fat kid's neck into his grasp. The 2 other bullies shrieked in fear and ran as fast as their legs could move. The fat bully looked into Naruto's eyes in fear, but suddenly said, "Beautiful." A giant tick mark appeared on his forehead. And he slammed the boy's head into the ground, knocking him out. "Damn it, what the fuck, man? I'm a boy," Naruto shouted at the top of his lungs. Neji snickered hard, trying to hold in laughter so he didn't end up like the boy on the ground. Hinata came up and hugged Naruto on his side. "Naruto-kun, put away the Tensegan or we'll get in more trouble." This shook Naruto, causing Kaguya to laugh again in his head. Naruto retracted his chakra from his eyes and his pale eyes came back. "We should leave here." Both of the Hyugas nodded, Neji's nod being forced since he was holding in laughter. "Yo, you wonder where Hinata learns that language, but it's definitely from you." Naruto sighed and they took off back to the compound. As soon as they stepped in the compound, Hisashi was already waiting for them. All 3 kids gulped. "Out pretty late, considering tomorrow is Lord Naruto and Lady Hinata's first day to the academy. Neji, you should know better." Naruto did the only thing he could think of to get out of this quickly. He bowed. "I apologize for our unseemly behavior. As the clan heir, the responsibility falls on my shoulders." Hisashi nodded, but then spoke. "Naruto-sama, you know better than to bow before a branch member. Raise your head. Hisashi-sama has called for you and Hinata to the elders' building." "Understood." Naruto took Hinata's hand and they both took off away from Hizashi. Hizashi stared at Neji for a second and then smiled. "So what happened, son?" Neji smirked back. The young lord snapped after being called a girl. Then one of the boys called his eyes beautiful. Neji snickered. Hizashi let out a subdued laugh. That boy tries to hold in his emotions too much. Everyone in the compound knows how expressionate he is, but he holds it in because of his name. The academy will be good for him. The Hyuga are expected to act like that, but Naruto has the power, authority, and right to act how he pleases. And that in turn shows his self-control. He has Ulrea. Dai voiced his displeasure with the caged bird seal, let alone the main branch clan dynamic. He knows that he can't effectively do anything until he is clan head, so he shows restraint. Neji countered. Hizashi smiled ever so slightly and looked up toward the setting sun. To be honest, in his eyes, we could all be very well the same. We fight over blood purity and look silly compared to the 1wh. Oh, can't tell the difference between us all. But maybe that is what the Hyuga need. Neji nodded thoughtfully. Elders' Council Room. Do you know why you are here, Otsutsuki-sama? The voice of the OL. Dest Elder called out to Naruto as soon as he and Hinata made it to the middle of the room. Naruto looked around and found all 8 elders, and Hiyashi, all sitting in their places at their half-moon-shaped table. No, I do not. Naruto replied simply. I'm sure you will inform me shortly. The oldest elder nodded. Correct. Tomorrow is your first day of the academy, so we feel it necessary to inform you of a council decision. Naruto raised a small eyebrow. And this decision has to do with myself and Hinata here. He had a strong feeling of what was happening, but Naruto decided to hear it from the horse's mouth. Or elder's mouth in this case. He looked over at Hinata, seeing a searching expression on her face, then reality dawned on her. Then a brief smile before her face went stoic again. All of this happened in the span of a second. Indeed. Before you start learning about the rest of the world and interacting with others, we want to explain matters of betrothal. As an Otsutsuki, you have the purest bloodline of Byakugan since our ancestor Homura Otsutsuki. More pure, since I'm basically a genetic match for Usagi Hime, Naruto thought. Usagi Hime is a new one. I happily accept. Kaguya spouted off in his head and Naruto rolled his eyes and smiled. So to be direct, if I may be so bold, you wish for me to be engaged to Hina Hime here so I can eventually strengthen the blood of the Hyuga. Naruto smirked and looked at Hinata. I don't know if Hina Hime here would be interested in me though, so maybe you should ask her. Hinata, shocked by what he said, blushed. Well, I would actually, really love to be, engaged to you. The sentence kept getting quieter as she went on. Naruto chuckled and threw an arm around her shoulder and leaned on her, since he was a couple inches taller than her. There, engagement approved. But is Hiyashi-san okay with this? Naruto looked at Hinata's father. Hiyashi looked back at him. A small, barely noticeable smile crossed his face as he gave Naruto a slight head nod. I forget you're 6 sometimes with how aware you are of things. Another elder piped up. We do apologize that you will be together with Hinata. Naruto immediately interrupted. Excuse me. Why would there be an issue? Bloodline. In that case, none of you are worthy to be sitting around that table while I stand in the middle of you like I am being assigned a marriage. Do you understand this? Kaguya nodded as well in his mindscape with a smirk. The elders slightly squirmed. Sweet son of mine, you make me so happy. Would you like some authority to back up your words? Kaguya asked. Naruto slightly smiled. It is all right, and I am thankful. I am aware how you feel about people taking what is yours. Nonsense, you have never asked for anything, let alone take from me. My will is out in the world already, but you have won my heart through your own efforts. I give to you freely. I give you this. As soon as she said it, Naruto felt a surge of celestial chakra. His chest felt heavy, and felt something change. The elders watched in reverence, awe, and horror as the small boy emitted a silver chakra. Horns started to sprout on top of his head, mirroring the same of Kaguya's head. Suddenly the room's air got heavy around everyone, except for Hiyashi and Hinata. A message for them, son. Kaguya simply spoke to Naruto, informing that she was going to speak through him. His silence was consent as he waited for her. The room got even heavier, forcing the council to try and hold their heads off the desk. "I am the matriarch of the Otsutsuki." A female voice overlapped with the boys rolled over all in the room. Two elders fainted immediately. "My son's words are my own. Do not insult his chosen partner, as you are insulting myself as well." The elders started shaking and babbling apologies, barely discernible to anyone. Naruto turned to look at Hinata, but what Hinata saw in his eyes was not Naruto. Hinata was about to freak out. But a gentle smile crossed his face. "Don't fret, child, you have my blessing. Enjoy my son before you have to share with me." Kaguya, through Naruto, winked at the girl and the power retreated. Hiyashi dropped a bead of sweat. "Share." "No, she wouldn't." "What?" "Ah, Kami. Stop, please don't continue that thought. I can't believe she actually said that. Fucking horny Rabbi OWW, okay, I'm sorry. You really said that. What the fuck is wrong with you?" Everyone watched Naruto have a meltdown and arguing with what they assumed was the rabbit goddess with different opinions. Hiyashi actually felt bad for the boy. The elders were originally scared, but the thought of another pure-blood Otsutsuki excited them. Hinata was still thinking about what the goddess said, and actually felt a little angry. "Hell no. He's mine, you damn rabbit. I don't care who you are," Hinata thought. Hinata immediately latched to Naruto defensively. Naruto cursed in his hat at his mom while she was laughing in his head. "You can't have Naru-kun." Hinata shouted into his ear, thinking that if she yelled loud enough, Kaguya would hear her. Naruto's ear bled before immediately healing. "Hina-hime, she can hear everything I can hear." Hinata blushed in embarrassment, but didn't let go. The first day of the Ninja Academy came sooner than wanted for some, but for Hinata Hyuga, it couldn't come soon enough. She laid in bed staring at the ceiling with a big smile on her face. After being formally engaged to the person she loves, she spent most of the night rolling around in bed giggling and kicking her blankets all over her room. She couldn't help it, it was the best day of her life so far. She even got his mother's blessing. She then stared at her ceiling with a straight face. His damn mother said she'd have to share. What the fuck was that? Hinata was still young, so she didn't understand everything, but she had a weird feeling she didn't like what the rabbit goddess said. Hinata harumphed, and then started to get up and make her bed. While she was cleaning up and about to get ready for her first day, a knock on the door followed sliding was heard. Was Naruto here? In her room. They haven. Tea cuddled and slept for a while together. Wait, but it's the morning, maybe he came to get her. No, he'd. Big sis, stop daydreaming about Naru-ni and let's pick you out some clothes for today. It was her little sister, Hanabi, who came to make sure she was awake and to knock her out her daydreams. Hinata smiled and nodded her head. Okay, Hanabi. What should I wear? Hanabi cutely thought with her finger on her chin and started going through her drawers. She pulled out a black shirt, Hinata's signature jacket top off of a hanger from her closet, and some shorts from, whose shorts were those? Here you go sis. Where did you get these shorts? Aren't these a little too short? Hinata asked with a questioning look at her little sister. Don't worry. Girls should wear skirts and shorts to look good, right? You'd never wear a skirt, so that means you gotta wear shorts. Hanabi closed her eyes and nodded like it was the most logical conclusion. I know what you're saying, but I don't want to look good for Oath. You don't want to look good for Naru-ni. Hanabi looked at her like the question she asked shouldn't have even been a question. Quote. That's what I thought. Hanabi smiled again sweetly. The same smile their mom gave her when she was going to get her way no matter what before she passed. Hinata sighed and accepted defeat. Okay, but if he doesn't like them, I'm burning them. Hanabi giggled, put the extra clothes back in the drawer and ran out of the room and slammed the door, leaving just as fast as she came. Hinata looked at the clothes, sighed, blushed, and then got dressed. Her hair was still a little out of sorts, but that means she'd get a treat in a bit. Hinata then walked out onto the deck of the main branch building and looked into the small garden in front of it, spotting her favorite person. There was Naruto, crouched over, feeding his pet rabbits, his silver hair draping over his shoulder. He tucked some hair behind his ear and Hinata could make out his beautiful face. That wasn't fair. How can a boy have such a face? If it was her first time, she was sure she'd also mistake him for a girl, but she knew better. She trained with him in the summer and saw him shirtless. Hinata knew he had almost no baby fat on him, the guy was crafted like a god. He's only a kid, and Hinata couldn't even imagine what he'd look like when he is older. His skin was somehow pale too. Despite how often he was outside. Hinata blushed when she saw him cutely scold a baby rabbit for biting his finger while he was feeding it. She took a breath and decided it was time to make her presence known. As she walked close, Naruto looked up. He gave Hinata his signature bright teethy smile. A smile that she never saw paired with Byakugan except for him. Another testament of how strong his personality was to maintain his sense of self through all the rigorous Hyuga etiquette lessons. Something Hinata cherished and wanted to mirror. Good morning Hina-hime. You must have slept well. Would you like me to brush that bedhead away? Naruto looked directly into her eyes with no malice or judgment. The only person besides her sister that wasn't doing something for her in exchange for something. How could she not love this boy? Yes, please. Hinata chirped as she sat down on the deck edge. Naruto stood up and walked behind her, brush already in hand, and sat down behind her. He clearly expected this, but didn't say anything, like it was a part of his normal routine. The bunnies all ran around in the garden as he steadily brushed her hair free of any knots. He was the best at this in the whole compound. But it didn't surprise her, considering how much hair he had himself. How long does it take to brush your own hair, Naru-kun? I wake up with perfect hair. Hinata pouted. But, you can brush it if you'd like, should you wake up at a reasonable time. Hinata smiled. Okay, I'd like that. A couple minutes passed, and Naruto stood up and offered Hinata a hand up. She took it and he held on, escorting her to go eat before they left. So what made you wear shorts instead of your usual pants? Naruto asked, looking elsewhere. He noticed. Hanabi said I should wear them, did they look bad? I am sorry. Hinata got self-conscious and tried to pull her jacket down lower with her free hand. Not at all, they are cute. Naruto said while scratching his cheek and slightly blushing. Oh, really? You like them? Yes, Naruto said, his face darkening in a blush a little more. Good. Hinata, suddenly happy and making a resolution to wear them more often, started to skip and pull Naruto to go eat. Minus 45 minutes later. Naruto and Hinata stood in front of their classroom door, both nervous for different reasons. This is your first step beyond the Hyuga, my dear son. Are you ready? Kaguya could sense his nerves, but Naruto resolved himself. Naruto smiled. Of course, as you said, this is just the first step. Followed by many more on my path. Fufufu, well spoken. Kaguya sat down on a well-cushioned chair she created in his mindscape, ready to watch her son. Are you ready, Hina-hime? Naruto asked as he looked at her. Yeah, just summoning some courage. Hinata stated as she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Naruto, feeling his humor bone coming out, smiled and leaned forward, kissing Hinata's forehead. Her eyes shot open, and blinked a couple times. Naruto chuckled and opened the sliding door and walked into the room. Hinata blinked a few more times, lightly touched her forehead and blushed. She then lightly smiled and followed after him. Looking into the room, there were only a few people at the moment. Class was in 20 or so minutes, but Naruto and Hinata wanted a good look at the class beforehand. The board at the front of the room said, "Welcome to the academy. Please take a seat where you like." He would take the board up on that. He scanned the chairs and saw most spots open, aside from two. One near the back, occupied by a lazy-looking boy with his black hair pulled back into a puffied ponytail, and a black, half-spiky-haired boy near the front with his elbows on the desk, hands covering half of his face as if he was in contemplation. Naruto turned to whisper into Hinata's ear. Any preference in seating? We can see well no matter where we sit. Hinata slightly giggled thinking about how true it was, but pointed towards the middle seats. One near the stairs that swept through the rows and one in the very middle. Naruto nodded and headed towards their seats, escorting Hinata into the middle seat. Naruto sat down and immediately felt a gaze on the back of his head. Without turning around, he spoke. It's impolite to stare at those you don't know. My name is Naruto Otsutsuki, may I ask for yours? Also, before it even escalates to that point, I am a boy. Hinata giggled and then a silent couple of seconds passed before he heard a reply. Troublesome, my name is Shikamaru Nara. Thank you for The clarification before the situation got more troublesome later. Naruto turned around, smiled and nodded. Trust me, the sooner everyone knows, the easier my time in class will be. If you don't mind me asking, why do you not grow out your hair more? I'm told the Nara use shadows to fight, so wouldn't having your hair out of a ponytail and longer create more of a shadow for yourself? Shikamaru's eyes widened and then adopted a look of deep thought. Not a bad idea, but sounds like a drag to do. Wouldn't be less of a drag than tightly binding a ponytail each morning. Bedhead would be your strength, would it not? You aren't a normal Hyuga. Shikamaru narrowed his lazy eyes, but Naruto could see thoughts brewing. Indeed, am not a normal Hyuga, I'm not a Hyuga at all. You could ask any of them. Naruto gestured towards Hinata. Shikamaru's lazy gaze fell on Hinata, who simply waved. I'm Hinata Hyuga, a pleasure to meet you. Naruto is not a Hyuga, but from the clan the Hyuga originate from. That is all I can or will say. This statement drew the attention of the boy down near the front, who quickly turned around and looked at Naruto, but Naruto simply smiled and gave a slight bow. Good morning. May I know your name? I can see from your crest on your back that you are an Uchiha, but I don't like coming to assumptions. Sasuke Uchiha. What do you mean the Hyuga originated from your clan? The now identified Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Are all Uchiha this? What's a nice word, suspicious? Yes, your Uchiha clan also comes from us. My mother has the original version of your Sharingan. If you are interested in the Otsutsuki and your ancestral origins, come to the Hyuga compound and ask for me. Sasuke narrowed his eyes even more. You expect me to believe you? I bet you are just a bastard whose parent was a Hyuga and got kicked out. Do you insist on being hostile? Naruto's eyes also narrowed. Hinata was starting to get worked up too. Who the fuck do you think you are? Talking to my fiancé like that? Hinata began to see red when she felt Naruto's hand on her shoulder. She took a deep breath and stood closer to Naruto to calm down. If you want to learn where your clan came from, I insist you come, Naruto declared, making sure there was no hostility in his voice. I'm alright, you incestual Hyugas would probably try and jump me and take my eyes. Sasuke smirked as if he said the most clever comeback. Even Shikamaru groaned knowing where this was going. Are you sure that's the hill you want to die on? You know, the Uchiha does the same right. Are you from a main line? Naruto raised a small eyebrow. My father was the clan head, what of it? Sasuke sneered out his reply, being forced to remember what only happened not too long ago. You know that there is like a 75% chance your parents were either cousins or closer in the family tree, right? Keep the bloodline pure, that kinda thing. There is no way you didn't know that. You can't be that, it's my first day so I shouldn't say that, you can't be that uninformed, can you? Shikamaru, I'm not delusional am I? Naruto needed an outside opinion on this. Someone not from the hardcore bloodline clans. Getting dragged into this is troublesome, but yeah. It's pretty well known, not just in Konoha, but the whole world that bloodline clans, keep the bloodline pure, I'm gonna steal that by the way. Shikamaru stated before seeing Naruto wink at him. Shikamaru almost blushed but remembered that was a boy and calmed down. Sasuke turned red, flipped Naruto off and laid his head down on the table. Well, it appears that was that at the moment. Slowly students started to trickle in. People of all shapes and sizes came through the door, and Shikamaru seemed rather fond of a fat boy that sat next to him. Soon the teacher came in and introduced himself as Iruka Yumino. The teacher then had all the students introduce themselves. Some strange form of fate was pulling the strings. Because every main clan was present in this room. Nara, Akamaiki, Yamanaka, Uchiha, Inuzuka, Abarame, and Hyuga. As introductions were heading up the aisles, it was Hinata's turn to introduce herself. As she stood up, a wolf whistle came from the Inuzuka boy next to her on her other side. Naruto looked at him with pity, knowing he wouldn't even have to do anything. Hinata stands up. Hello, my name is Hinata Hyuga. I am from the main branch family, I love cinnamon rolls and, she looked at Kiba with a dangerous look, my fiancé. I dislike people who try and get on my good side for shallow reasons and, Hinata shivers. Shrimp. She then sits down. Everyone is shocked at the introduction and Naruto laughed audibly. This was a weird pair of Hyugas. Iruka recovers finally and makes a statement. Class. For those who don't know, some of our noble clans often are betrothed at a young age and there are many opportunities to break it off down the road if feelings change. Uruka whoa. RDED it to make it sound like Hinata didn't want to be engaged, and that made her mad. She took a deep breath after feeling Naruto's hand on her leg. Sensei, I actually am perfectly fine with my Enga. Gement and wouldn't want it any other way. He treats me well, cares about me, and, well, just look at him. She pointed a finger directly at Naruto's face, who in turn let loose a smile that most of the boys and girls considered deadly. I guess it's time for my introduction then, Naruto stood up, straightened his white kimono, and brushed some of his stray hairs behind his ear. An act that confused everyone who just heard his voice. This was a boy. Yes, I'm male. Yes, my hair is as good the Yamanaka's over there. Ino gave a smile and a thumbs up for the compliment, seeing how well kept his was. Yes, I am Hinata-chan's fiancé. Now that those answers are out of the way, my name is Naruto Otsutsuki. Since everyone else has given me the knowledge of their clan relations, I will lose that I am the current heir to the Hyuga due to my pure ancestry, not by marriage. That is all I will say about that. If you have an interest in Hyuga ancestry, please visit the compound. The elders would love to educate the whole world of it if they had the opportunity. Hinata lightly giggled at that. I love to cook, tend to my rabbits, and be around my precious people. I dislike people who don't know the difference between confidence and arrogance and makeup. Naruto bowed and sat down. Hinata giggled again, knowing Hanabi put lipstick on his face the other day without him noticing, causing the whole family to take pictures, all of a sudden. Naruto didn't find out until he put his mouth on a glass and saw the marks from the lipstick. The class was silent again, but Kiba spoke up, slightly pissed. This pretty boy wearing all white is your fiancé. I wear white because I know you can't dirty it. Naruto looked at the boy with the family trait that seemed to extend back to the Otsutsuki. A massive shit-eating smirk. Before the boy could get up, Naruto looked like he was about to flip his hair over his shoulder in dismissal with his hand, but several hairs came flying out like small senbon, pinning his jacket to his seat. The hairs were so small, Uruka couldn't see it from the front of class. Naruto smirked again and spooked Kiba, causing him to shut up. Introductions finished and the rest of class started. The rest of the day became pretty uneventful. A few people came up to talk to Naruto and Hinata, but the girls all flocking around Sasuke helped them avoid the limelight. The day continued and soon the school day was over. Surprisingly, Shikamaru stopped the pair. It's troublesome, but is that offer to learn about your clan still on the table? I'd like to bring my dad, he likes things like that. Quote. Naruto smiled. Of course, we can eat dinner and discuss any questions or history you or your dad are interested in. I'll alert the guards and the elders. I'm sure those old men will prepare a feast as an excuse to keep you there to hear them ramble about their heritage. Shikamaru smiled back. Sounds like a drag, but I'll see you there tonight then. Naruto's prediction was exactly right. The Elder Council's chamber was filled with food when the Naras arrived. Shikamaru's mom, Yoshino, was also there. The Naras listened to the Hyuga elders talk about the bloodline and their great ancestor, Homura Otsutsuki. It was honestly getting annoying hearing everyone talk about him and not his mother, but Naruto knew that wasn't a good idea. The Nara also explained about their family, as well as their family deer and forest. It was intriguing, so Naruto paid as much attention as possible. What truly surprised Naruto was that the elders were listening too. After dinner and the long chat, Naruto escorted the Naras to the end of the compound. Thank you for taking the time to come by. All of you. Naruto smiled and bowed. Yoshino and Shikaku smiled, returning the bow. Shikaku then spoke. No, thank you. It wasn't as troublesome as I thought it would be. Our son also told us about your hair idea to increase the size of our shadow. It's a very interesting idea. Shikamaru's ear perked up at this and chimed in. Actually, Naruto, you just reminded me that you used your hair to pin Kiba to his chair before he could freak out. What was that? Shikaku raised an eyebrow. Naruto chuckled and lifted up some of his hair. Ah, I just used chakra through my hair, stiffened it to the strength of senbon, and then shot off some pieces of it. Kind of like a mini senbon barrage. It's a bit of a family technique. Naruto took the hair in his hand and threw it back behind him with the rest of his hair. Honestly, I was thinking of pulling most of my hair back into a high ponytail. Maybe less people will see me as a guy. Naruto chuckled. Shikamaru highly doubted it, but thought he'd support his new friend. That could probably work. Naruto closed his eyes and smiled. Yeah. I should. Naruto took a strand of hair, pushed some chakra through his fingers. The hair lengthened to twice its length and then snapped off at its normal length. Naruto THN used it to tie his hair into a high ponytail, leaving his bangs to frame the sides of his face. Naruto looked at them with a hopeful look. Well, Yoshino couldn't hold in a giggle. It looks great, Naruto-kun. You should keep it like that. Shikamaru had a bead of sweat drip down his face. It was much worse. He could see the nape of his neck, which looked even more feminine despite being able to see some muscle drop into his shoulder. Shikamaru looked away and changed the subject. So you can grow your hair with chakra. I thought you'd eventually go bald if you had to go all out in a fight. I see why you don't cut it though. Naruto frowned at the change in topic, causing Yoshino to giggle again. Still, Naruto responded to his guest. Even if I wanted to cut it, which I wouldn't, scissors wouldn't be able to cut it. It'd be like trying to cut ninja wire with popsicle sticks. Naruto grew another long hair from his bangs and snapped it off and handed it to Shikamaru. Go ahead and try to break it, don't smell it though. Naruto smirked. Why would I smell it, you weirdo? Troublesome guy, I swear. Shikamaru slightly blushed from the teasing and took the hair. He tried to pull it hard. But it snapped taut and made a metallic noise as it vibrated. What the? I can still control it too. Naruto then made the hair strand retract and pull Shikamaru's hands together, only for the strand to wrap and clasp Shikamaru's hands together. Shikaku's eyes went wide in shock and Naruto chuckled. Naruto then stepped forward and touched his hair strand. It dissolved, freeing Shikamaru. It only responds to my family's chakra, so I guess it could be considered a Kekemora. If we end up on the same team in the future, I'll tell you more. Naruto nodded sagely, not revealing more than he has to. Shikaku smiled. You should come over some shogi sometime, can you play? Naruto smiled and laughed. He turned his face to see Hinata approaching. Of course, one doesn't survive in a noble clan without being forced to learn. Naruto then slightly bowed at Shikamaru. I sincerely apologize if my mannerisms are uncomfortable for you, but I promise I am honest and care about my friends. Would you be willing to count yourself amongst my friends? I'd love to play shogi with you and your family, should you wish. Shikamaru was taken aback by such a formal, yet direct question. This is a drag, I'll be your friend. Naruto. I can tell you mean well, but you don't need to be so formal in asking people to be your friends. I'll try, but I make no promises. Shikaku and Yoshino smiled and then saw Hinata finish walking up. They watched her look at Naruto's now exposed neck, blush heavily, and then hold his hand. Could you keep your hair up from now on? She quietly asked. Naruto let out a real laugh and gave a bright smile. Well, that's 2 votes at least. I can have it up for you, at least. Hinata smiled a bright smile too and hugged him, putting her head right in to the nape of his neck without having to worry about his hair. Naruto laughed and then used a free hand to wave goodbye to his guests. Please come by again soon. I would love to host you again. Good night Naruto, thank you. Shikamaru casually waved and then left with his parents. -5 minutes later, Shikamaru and his parents walked in silence towards the Nara compound, all left in thought. Yoshino broke it first. Naruto seems like he'll be a great and dependable friend. Honestly, when I saw him, I thought you were introducing me to a girl you liked. She giggled and made Shikamaru blush. Shikaku laughed, but then gained a calculative look. All jokes aside, what do you think of Naruto Otsutsuki, son? Shikamaru thought for a second before he spoke. When I first saw him, he walked in with Hinata. I immediately assumed they were 2 arrogant Hyuga girls. When they sat down, Naruto immediately noticed and instead of belittling me, he kindly introduced himself and then identified himself as a boy. Which means he is aware of how he looks, which is troublesome, Shikamaru coughed before continuing. He then brought up his lineage, which I doubted until the recent history lesson, WH. It makes him more troublesome, but him declaring his lineage upset the Uchiha boy, Sasuke. He then offered Sasuke to learn about him, but Sasuke spouted off and said some pretty ignorant things while Naruto still wasn't acting hostile. Shikaku raised an eyebrow. Ignorant. Shikamaru nodded. He tried to insult Naruto with an incest joke, which would have been a good dig, but it meant nothing coming from an Uchiha. Naruto pointed it out, but still brought it up in a way to not upset Sasuke. It had the opposite effect and embarrassed him, and he shut up for the rest of the day. Shikaku laughed. Fair enough. But now that we know a little about the Otsutsuki, it couldn't even be considered incest between him and Hinata. From what I understood, the Hyuga has been its own clan for centuries at this point. But that brings up more questions. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes. About how a dead clan suddenly appeared, and it's supposedly just as pure as it was before it disappeared. Or the F.A. court that the Hyuga elders basically said Naruto's mother is a goddess. Or the fact that his lineage would make him a much younger brother of the founding shinobi of the world. Or the fact that his blood could produce another set of Senju. Uchiha, and Hyuga if he ends up like his mother. I don't know about you, but the fact that he looks much more feminine compared to his brothers could mean he is a lot closer to her than both the Sage of Six Paths and Homura Otsutsuki. Shikaku just now realized how much potential his son truly has. Exactly, son. I need to talk to the Hokage. This is too big for him to just be unaware of what is happening. Honey. He looked at Yoshino. She only sighed and flicked her hand away. Go ahead, I don't think that sweet child would do anything, but I know you woe. Stop thinking about it until you talk to Lord Third. Shikamaru waved and continued walking with his mother while Shikaku used a shunshin. Hokage's office. Hiruzen was finally finished with his tasks today. He let out a deep sigh of relief. He had every plan to go home soon. His face gained a determined look though. I have one last important task, something that cannot be skipped. The third Hokage moved with practiced ease, reaching into his desk like he does every day. Quickly opening his desk drawer, he reached until he felt a book against the very back of the drawer. You can't hide from me, old friend. The old man pulled the book out, closed his drawer, and took a deep breath, and looked at it. Ika, I need ya, Hiruzen thought with a giggle and immediately opened to where he left off. As soon as his eyes landed on a page, a brisk knock-knock came from the door in his office. Hokage-sama, Shikaku Nara is here to see you, he says it's urgent. With a few muttered curses, he put the book back into the drawer and assumed a business pose on his desk. One that wouldn't portray the fact that he was trying to read porn in the office. Tell him to enter. The door slowly swung open, revealing the Nara head. Shikaku came mulling into the room and sat on the couch that was up against a window to the left of the Hokage's desk. What would you like to discuss, Shikaku? The Hokage didn't take offense from the lazy Nara, since his whole clan was like this. Shikaku turned his resting head and looked into the Hokage's eyes. Naruto Otsutsuki. What the hell is that boy? I was just given a very troublesome history lesson by the old men of the Hyuga clan, and honestly, it didn't make me feel better. At all. The third Hokage knew someone was going to come to him when the boy made it to the academy. But he honestly thought it would have been Danzo. To be fair, it was much easier to hide Naruto within the Hyuga clan since they operated efficiently by themselves. As long as no one brought up clan members, heirs, or wanted to be nosy, no one would have found out about him. Suddenly, the door opened. When you bring up demons, they arrive at your doorstep, it seems, Hiruzen thought. Danzo did indeed walk in with a steady sound of his cane clacking against the floor. When he stood in the middle of the office, he narrowed his one visible eye onto his old colleague. I feel it is important to the security of Konoha that I am informed as well. Who or what is this Otsutsuki? Hiruzen sighed and stroked his temples. He then pulled out a scroll from a different desk drawer and lobbed it to Shikaku. Naruto is the current heir apparent to the Hyuga clan, and since he is, information cannot be given freely without the presence of the current clan head present. This scroll, however, is a letter I received from the boy in question this morning. A branch member of the clan brought it by. Shikaku, please read it so Danzo can hear. The third Hokage could only be impressed. Naruto was more shrewd than he thought. Shikaku opened up the scroll and skimmed it before reading. His eyes went wide for a second before they returned to normal and smiled slightly. He has very Elegant handwriting and vocabulary for a child. Indeed, please read now Shikaku. Shikaku nodded. My humble greetings Lord 3rd Hokage. I apologize for not greeting you in person since my stay here in Konoha, but as you know, Hiyashi-san has been grooming me for the position of clan head. Between that and a lack of wanting my skills to wane, I have been unpleasantly tied up. This letter is to inform you of a few decisions. One made for me willingly, and two made by myself. The decision made for me that I willingly allow is the betrothal to Hinata Hyuga, of the main branch house of Hyuga. We have grown up together. So I cherish her in her presence. Therefore, this arrangement was mutually beneficial to both of us. I asked Hiyashi-san to let me break this news to you, but you are more Han welcome to ask him about this development during the next council meeting. Now on to my own decisions. I say these things with the Hyuga elders and clan heads' blessing, if my own name does not hold enough weight. I am certain my inclusion of the academy will raise many eyes to look in my direction. I will not hide my heritage or behave differently, as it would be a direct insult to not only the rabbit goddess, but also the descendants that helped create the village of Konoha. I am an Otsutsuki, and all come from our clan. We give freely, but we are not to be taken from. If you wish to learn of my, and in turn, your village's ancestry, you may visit the Hyuga clan for proper instruction. Know that my eyes are leagues above the Byakugan of the Hyuga, and I will know if our compound has anything planted in your visit. I have most, if not all chakra signatures of the shinobi in Konoha both above and below. Have full faith in my ability to snuff any conspiracy that arises against the clan that has taken care of me. Danzo's hand gripped his cane tight. He's dangerous, he knows my root operatives. The second decision I have made, I will now tell you. Upon my graduation of the Academy and I have proven myself worthy of trust to the village to each participating clan, I ask that I am allowed to stand in front of the council to both ask and answer questions to alleviate the anxiety of its members. I will explain all that I know except ones pertaining to sensitive information about my mother. I feel that is understandable, especially if you find out who she is. She would be very angry and can be very hard to calm down. I've only known her to be nice to myself in her whole existence, and I don't doubt she would go to any lengths to snuff any obstacles I encounter that she thinks I can't handle. She can be a beast at times. Sincerely, Naruto Otsutsuki, clan heir to the Hyuga and herald of the rabbit. Danzo and Shikaku just took in more knowledge than they expected. Shikaku rubbed his head after he rolled the scroll and handed it back to the Hokage. That left me with more questions than answers. I feel like he purposely left clues in this letter that only certain people will understand. Are you sure this kid is only 6? Shikaku's headache grew. Shikaku understood the rabbit goddess was supposed to be his mother from the dinner lesson they just got. Herald of the Rabbit. Okay. He speaks for his mother, very concerning but still made sense. Shinobi above and below. How troublesome. Danzo reacted though, so something he's involved with. Troublesome, what? Did he mean by his mother being a beast sometimes? He put emphasis on it. Something isn't lining up. Is he the Jinchuriki the Hokage has been hiding? But his mother isn't a fox, she literally goes by a rabbit. Troublesome, troublesome, I need more time to think. Shikaku slumped on the couch, gripping his temples and repeating his catchphrase as if it were a mantra. Hiruzen chuckled and then locked eyes, eye with Danzo. I take it you received your warning, as well as an invitation. The Hokage would not expand on what he meant, he knew Danzo better than that. Indeed, it appears I'm in need of a history lesson. I'm even more curious to see what excuses this articulate child will come up with given 6 years to explain himself. Hiruzen chuckled, the kid bought himself time, and only time itself would tell what would happen. 6 years. That's how fast time flew. Today was a day that was important for many reasons to Naruto. A day for his graduation test. A day to address the council. A day to prepare to take his first step into the world of shinobi as a genin. Naruto stood, looking at the academy building. He now stood at a height of 5 feet 4, not super tall, but taller than many at his age of 12. His long, silver hair still tied in a high ponytail he'd grown fond of over time. Its length was still excessive, reaching to the top of his pelvis, so one could imagine how far it would go out of its ponytail. No matter how hard he tried, His more androgynous features made him even more confusing, not being aided with his Royal Heim-style small eyebrows. No matter how much he aged or tried to gain muscle mass, he couldn't bulk out his body to look more manly. He just ended up toned and defined. A fact that for some reason pissed him off, but made Hinata happy. Naruto shook the thoughts out of his head before he pissed himself off. He straightened his kimono top and pulled the bottom of his gray pants to make sure they were snug. Naruto was still getting used to it, but Hinata convinced him a full kimono was not practical for ninja. From then on, he changed his clothes to a white kimono top designed with 6 black tomo on the collar, billowing sleeves to hide his hands, a black obi, and gray pants that tucked into a pair of black shinobi sandals. The monochromatic look was something he liked for some reason. He'd feel like a clown if he wore colors for some reason, probably because of how pale he was. One thing bugged him though. Where was he going to wear his headband? This thought alone caused him to leave later than usual. His forehead. Hell no, that'd draw attention to his eyebrows and he'd look ridiculous. His neck. That would be good, but Hinata would be mad and complain about it being in her way. His arm. Sure, but just thinking about it cutting off airflow in his kimono top pissed him off. My son, as I'm sure these thoughts are important to you, you'll never have to worry about wearing one at all unless you get to class. Kaguya chided. Naruto shook another set of thoughts out his head and moved to class. As Naruto opened up the sliding door to class, he saw everyone chatting in their groups, excited about the final test for graduation. Sasuke was trying to sit by himself, but was being hounded by his group of fangirls. Naruto didn't talk to him much on purpose after finding out the boy was a perpetual prick, but he still felt bad for the boy. He couldn't even sulk in silence without being harassed. Ino would be joining Sakura and the other annoying girls, but she was talking to Hinata at the moment. This was a friendship Naruto didn't see coming. But Hinata would rotate her style for a couple years. This brought Ino and her fashionista personality to be drawn to her. After Hinata's body started developing, she started wearing her jacket open and sported a black crop top. This was something Hinata claimed was a power move, and was clearly influenced by Ino. Naruto wasn't complaining and thought she looked cute in whatever she wore, but knew better to not get involved with clothing choices beyond that. He would end up in a dress, and that would never happen again. Naruto walked up to the two. Good morning, ladies. Are you looking forward to graduation? Hinata immediately wrapped herself around one of Naruto's arms. Nice of you to finally join us. I was wondering how long you'd stand out there, Hinata giggled. And yes, I'm excited. Ino smiled widely. Yup, I'll prove I'm the best, get my own hubby, Sasuke, when he sees how well I did, and get one over on Miss Forehead over there. Her smile got even brighter as she gave a thumbs up. Strength might be the right approach for Sasuke. Hinata thought. I don't get what you see in him though, but I'll support my friend. Ino snickered. And I don't know how I would feel being with a guy with better hair than me like Naruto, sorry. I go with dark, brooding, and handsome though. Hinata visibly frowned. And you'll never have to worry about that either, so stick to your Uchiha. Ino laughed, knowing how defensive she got over Naruto, she couldn't help riling her up. Down girl, ha ha ha. He's all yours, I know better after I saw you threatening billboard brow. Sakura heard that, scowled at Ino, and went back to annoying the living hell out of Sasuke. Naruto just shook his head. Iruka walked in and everyone moved to their seats. Alright class, congratulations on making it this far. Before we begin, I wanted to tell you all how proud I am of you all. I wanted to tell you that Mizuki-sensei will not be present due to circumstances. It's hard to find proctors that will remain impartial, so the third Hokage has personally volunteered to help oversee the tests. At that moment, the third Hokage walked into the class and nodded at the students. Greetings. I've come to see the future of Konoha and look forward to meeting you all. The class had varying reactions, but all of them excited. Iruka clapped his hands to get attention back on him. Okay class, settle down. I'm going to pass out your written exam now. After the exams were passed out, the next hour flew by with relative ease. Most students were done by the 30-minute mark. Everyone snickered as Kiba was sweating and took the whole duration. Okay class, time is up. Everyone pass your tests to the front of the classroom, and then we will step outside for kunai throwing and sparring. Uruka alerted. Naruto made it a habit of harassing Kiba since their first meeting in class and had no intention of changing that right now. Sensei, can you put Inuzuka-san's paper in a different pile? It looks soaked in sweat and I don't want my paper to fade. The class laughed only for Kiba to shout, face red in embarrassment. Shut up, you bastard. Naruto chuckled into his sleeve. Naruto, stop being a bully. Uruka slightly smiled. I'd never ruin the rest of the tests like that. This drew a smile even to Hiruzen's face. Alright, class. Move it. Uruka, the Hokage, N.D. The class all moved outside to the public academy training area. The kunai throwing part happened quickly, the only people really not doing well were most of the civilian children. The part that everyone tensed at was the sparring portion. Uruka pointed to the Hokage standing in the middle of the sparring circle. You have the great honor today of the Hokage testing your taijutsu. This is a privilege, so show him everything you've got, understand. I want to see how you do, but do keep in mind I'm an old man, Uruka. Hiruzen chuckled. Almost everyone collectively gulped. To be honest, the Hokage was allowing everyone to spar the entire time duration, catching and blocking the flailing hands and feet of young children with ease. Naruto didn't know what to expect, however, this was the Hokage after all. Sasuke and Hinata did quite well, both showcasing their clan's fighting prowess. Naruto was very proud of Hinata as she has been practicing altering her Juken style to be more fluid with him. Once her limbs lengthen a bit, she will be a monster. After she was finished, she smiled and ran over and jumped onto Naruto's neck, spinning around him and landing in front of him. How did the form look? It felt much better today. Naruto smiled down at her. It is improving by leaps and bounds. Hinata giggled. Hiruzen thought something different though. He didn't even budge under her weight. The boy has insane core and neck muscles. Okay, next. Naruto Otsutsuki. Please enter the circle. Uruka shouted. Wish me luck, Hina-hime. Naruto smiled and Hinata gave him a peck on the cheek. I'll be waiting. Naruto chuckled as walked over and stood in front of the Hokage. Remember, only taijutsu. No low blows to private areas and show respect to your opponent. And Naruto, you can't use hair. I'm counting that as Senbon knowing you. Naruto bowed to the Hokage in response to Uruka's words. Hair, Sarutobi thought as he narrowed his eyes. Naruto sunk into the gentle fist stance with each of his open hands pointed outwards towards his left and right. That isn't the normal Juken stance, why is he doing that with his hands? The third Hokage's interest was piqued. He was called the professor for a reason. And seeing something new, even from a child, was slightly exhilarating. Begin. As soon as the voice was heard, Hiruzen watched the boy take a step forward and fall towards the ground with his legs slightly crouched. Turning so his back would hit it first. But right before he touched the ground, his legs straightened and propelled him forward rapidly. An upside-down palm strike headed towards his chest. Hiruzen raised a hand to deflect it, but his eyes widened when he saw Naruto change his palm strike to 2 fingers, aimed directly at the wrist coming to block the attack. He was aiming for my wrist and baited out my hand. The third thought in wonder. Instead of deflecting the attack, the third Hokage instead moved his body and face to the right so the attack would end with the boy falling. Maybe to recover by rolling. That was not what happened. The same hand that was still swinging, swung down and planted 2 fingers into the ground. Inverse 8 trigrams. The boy shouted. What the hell is that? Hiruzen took a real guarded position. Naruto then hoisted his legs above him in a quick one-handed handstand while his body fell forward. Was he going to launch himself back onto his feet? Revolving hell heel rotation. The boy used the momentum to spin his legs in a tornado, both legs flared out as chakra spread from his feet, using his free hand to shish chakra along the ground like a propellant, making his spin speed up at a ridiculous rate. What the hell? Who the hell would come up with something like that? This was the thought Hiruzen had as he jumped back to avoid the large spinning ball of released chakra. Naruto suddenly came to a halt, ceasing the rotation and threw himself back onto his feet, into a normal Juken stance. Uruka-sensei, are you going to call it? Naruto said as he stood straight and then pointed at the circle. Hiruzen looked down. He jumped out of the circle. His eyes widened and then he started to smile. Clever kid. He just wanted to catch me by surprise and get me out of the circle. Indeed, I have lost. Well done, my boy. A ninja must always expect the unexpected, something I did not put into practice well today. Iruka stood there slack-jawed, coughed to correct himself and then turned to Naruto. Well done, Naruto. Great job. Naruto nodded and bowed. Thank you, sensei, and thank you, Lord Third. I'm aware I would stand no chance in a real fight. But I am sure I will hold this victory over your head for the foreseeable future. Hiruzen belly laughed and wiped a tear from his eye. Indeed, my boy, you've earned it. Just know I'll be coming for you when you can handle a real fight to get my honor back. Naruto covered his mouth and chuckled. Of course, Lord Third. Naruto walked back to the other gap. Children and Hinata rocketed into him with a kiss and a bright smile. That was amazing. When did you finish getting down the heel rotation? Naruto put a thinking finger on his chin and looked up. Right now. Hinata looked at him in shock, and then exasperation. Kami, Naru-kun, you just needed to spar, not show off. I wouldn't have, but it isn't every day you can spar with the Hokage. Naruto just shrugged. Hinata let out another sigh. A few more kids went through sparring and they all returned to the classroom. Iruka stood in front of the children again. Okay, last part. Time to test your practical jutsus. I'll be calling you into the room adjacent to test with the Hokage. Should you pass, you will receive your headbands. One by one, the clan kids came out with headbands and all but one civilian passed. Naruto felt something off with him being the last one called, but he just shrugged it off. Hinata came back with her headband around her neck and gave him a bright smile. Just you left. Don't collapse under the pressure. Hinata giggled into her hand while Naruto rolled his eyes. Who knows? I may just be too bad at this jutsu stuff. Naruto winked as he heard his name called. Naruto arrived in the room and walked in front of his two testers. Okay, Naruto, we won't waste your time. Please show us a Kawarimi first. Iruka stated. Understood. Naruto thought for a second and smirked. Do you have any preferences for the substitution? Iruka smiled and looked at Hiruzen. Lord Hokage. The Hokage thought for a second. How far can you substitute something? Nar. Yuto's smirk widened and activated his Byakugan. As long as I can see it. Hiruzen smiled evilly. Is there anyone here that isn't supposed to be? Indeed. Naruto then disappeared in a puff of smoke. Only for a shinobi wearing a blank mask to appear. The root operative looked around and freaked out, only to disappear, replaced by Naruto again. I jumped off the roof of the next building over before I substituted back. Iruka freaked and then passed out, but Hiruzen laughed hard again. That was great, my boy. I think we'll get along just fine. Since Iruka is taking a leave of absence from his own body, please proceed with a henge. Naruto thought of Hinata, and then poofed into a perfect copy of her. She was the first person that came to mind, so please don't ogle my fiancé, Lord Third. Naruto spoke in Hinata's voice. Amusing the Hokage. Hiruzen chuckled but then nodded. Very good, you can change back and then show me a bunshin. I feel like you have something interesting beside the shadow clone. Naruto smiled. You are correct, Lord Third. Naruto smacked his hands together. Tengoku Bunshin. Suddenly a clone faded into existence, as if a genjutsu was dispelled and it was there the whole time. I can only make one of these, but it's also the only clone I can make with my own chakra. It knows everything I know and do, and I know everything it knows and does. To give an example, the Hokage watched the two Narutos act like the kids they were for the first time. Play rock, paper, scissors and get the same answer each time to prove they both knew what was going to be thrown. Then they did a needlessly long and impromptu series of handshakes, bumps, and explosions. Please ask something to it that I can't hear. Naruto then walked to the far end of the room and stood there. Hiruzen then whispered into the clone's ear and the real Naruto responded from the other side of the room. The chakra I use is celestial chakra, but the explanation can wait until we are in front of the council. The clone then faded out of existence like it never existed. Hiruzen was absolutely shocked and would be asking for extensive details on this clone, but outwardly remained composed. He already lost to the boy once today. Excellent, my boy. I think you've passed this with flying colors. Please select a headband and go to the other room while I wake up your sensei. Naruto bowed in. acceptance and walked over to the table. He hesitated for a second though. Noticing this, Hiruzen decided to inquire. What's wrong, Naruto? Can I put the Konoha plate on my obi? I couldn't think of a better location where it would look good on me. Naruto asked hesitantly. Of course, my boy. People put it in stanger places. As long as it is visible so people understand that you are a shinobi of Konoha. The Yamanaka heir is wearing hers as a belt already, so it's fine. Thank you, Lord Third. Naruto then took a black headband, sharpened a hair and cut the fabric underneath it, and then used that hair to weave it into his obi so it showed in the front. He then humphed in satisfaction and then left the room after bowing. This is going to be an entertaining council meeting. Shortly after, Ruruka walked into the room. Okay, I want you all to know again how happy I am for those of you that passed. Your team assignments will be located here in this class at 10 next week. You've all had a long day and I encourage you to celebrate with your family. Naruto, the Hokage says it's time for your meeting, but he didn't tell me what it was for. Naruto stood up and bowed. Understood, sensei. I'll be taking my leave. He turned to face Hinata. I'll see you at home. Hinata smiled and nodded as Naruto left. -20 minutes later, council room. Naruto and the Hokage walked into the council room together. Hiruzen waved the boy to stay in the middle while he moved to sit down behind his desk. Two older people were sitting next to him, while another stood beside the Hokage's table covered in bandages and holding a cane in his good hand. Naruto looked around and saw some faces he recognized and many he did not, but he could guess them from their features. Good afternoon everyone. I'm S. Many of you know why you are here today and many more have questions. Some of us have patiently waited 6 years to ask, so waiting a few more moments will be bearable. All of the council members Present have had an opportunity to talk to the Hyuga clan elders and Hiyashi, so base knowledge has been given and so questions could be formed properly. No civilians are present as this entire conversation does not concern them. The Hokage looked around and received nods all around before continuing. First, I'd like to introduce Naruto to the council. As you know, I am Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage. Hiruzen gestured to the older man next to him. This is Homura Mitokado. He then gestured to the older lady next to him, and Kaharu Udatane. They were my teammates and trusted elders of the council. He then gestured to the bandaged man. This is Danzo Shimura, an old friend of mine and also an elder of the council. Naruto bowed to each one respectfully as they were introduced. This Homura and Kaharu nod in approval for the boy's proper manners. The Hokage then gestured to the table of clan heads on Naruto's left. These are the prominent clan heads of the village. From the left, you have Shibi Aburame, Inoichi Yamanaka, Sum Inuzuka, Choza Akamaiki, Hiyashi Hyuga, and Shikaku Nara. I'm sure you recognize both Shikaku and Hiyashi. Naruto once again bowed to each one as they were introduced. It is nice to have this opportunity to meet you. My name is Naruto Otsutsuki. The Hokage is correct as I currently reside within the Hyuga compound and I have had the pleasure of interacting with the Nara family. I sincerely apologize for not being able to encounter the rest of you casually before this meeting. The council, except for Sum and Danzo, all nodded and smiled. Sum broke the comfortable silence. Are you always this formal, kid? I see why my son is uncomfortable around you. Naruto politely closed his eyes and gave a sweet smile. Your son is uncomfortable around me because he thinks I look like beautiful girl and it makes him question himself. He then went on to actively pursue my fiancé sexually and got beat up by said girl. I would say that would make anyone uncomfortable. Sum sank into her seat, trying to turn invisible as a few other clan heads snickered. That's cold, kid, was heard from the laughing Akamaiki head. Naruto was not here to s. How that his kindness made him a pushover. That matter aside, where would you like me to start? Homura was the first one up. Where has the Otsutsuki clan been hiding for centuries? Such a legendary clan can't just suddenly appear without seeming suspicious. Naruto nodded in recognition. I understand. I was allowed to speak a majority of this by my mother, but understand that some things will be intentionally omitted. I will still speak the complete truth and in recognition to the respect you have offered me, I will do the same. What do you mean allowed? Hiruzen spoke up. Think of it as how this village's clans work. Matters of the clan are directly monitored and addressed by the clan head. The clan head would be my mother, and I am allowed to inform you of things the clan head. This is why my title would be considered, Herald of the Rabbit. I know you have many questions about my mother, but what I can tell you about her will be included in my answer to Mitokado-san. Very well, I apologize for interrupting. Please continue Naruto. Naruto nodded. To understand where the Otsutsuki has been, I have to talk about why they disappeared. I am not allowed to tell you her name, as only Otsutsuki may know. But for the sake of this story, her name will be Usagi-sama. Fufufu, how cute. Go on little bunny, tell a story about bunny mommy, Kaguya teased. Naruto's eye twitched and then regained composure. Usagi-sama came here with a clan member to collect chakra and bring it back to her people far from this planet. While here, she fell in love with the people of this planet decided to betray her clansmen in favor of saving them. She tore the legs off of her clansmen and used it to fertilize something called a god seed. This seed absorbed chakra from the planet until the seed became a god tree. The tree bore a single fruit, a chakra fruit, and this fruit was the objective of the other Otsutsuki. Naruto started slowly pacing as he told his abridged story. He wanted this fruit to continue growing until it sucked the planet dry and left every living thing on this planet to wither and die. More Otsutsuki would come from beyond the stars to claim it. There was no way to stop all of them from coming. There was only one way to get that type of power. Naruto stopped and looked at the Homura. The man was gripping his chair and absorbing every word. Usagi-sama did the only thing she could do. She ate the chakra fruit from the god tree. This granted her the abilities and powers of the planet and every living thing on it. She awoke the Rinne-Sharingan, and with this power, she could protect her new home and save the humans of this land. Content with becoming the guardian of the tree, she made sure that the roots didn't seep too deep into the planet to kill it. While she was tending to the god tree, a daimyo of the land of ancestors approached her and offered her the opportunity to live amongst the people she loved, but she would be his concubine. Naruto looked sad, but continued. During this period, she gave birth to twins, Hagoromo and Homura. My genetic half-brothers. She wasn't fond of how they came to be, but she still loved her children. Something was wrong though. She looked at her children and noticed they bore some of her features, but something was wrong. Usagi-sama felt weaker. The chakra she absorbed from the fruit, a third went into each of her children. She grew furious, not because she hated her children. She grew furious because she lost the power to fight off Otsutsuki. What was she to do when they would come? And they would come. Not a matter of if, but when. Naruto raised a finger to emphasize this. Usagi-sama closed herself off from most, including her children as they started to get older. She worked through every plan she could, but reached one conclusion. She would have to kill her own children and take back their chakra, or she would have to sacrifice people to the god tree in hopes of developing another chakra fruit. Usagi-sama couldn't bear the burden of killing her own offspring. She would not let roots go into the core as that would kill the planet, so she had to manually feed the tree. Yuto recalled the memories Kaguya gave him and shuddered. One day, she messed up. She accidentally sacrificed the lover of her son, Hagoromo. She knew she had seen her before, but she was so mentally broken at the time from having to commit these atrocities. Naruto then looked directly at Danzo. Sometimes we lose ourselves in the bigger picture and forget why we started doing the things we do in the first place. Danzo shivered. His ambitions seemed so small compared to this. Hagoromo was furious, distraught, destroyed, he was many things. But most of all, he was resolute. He would not hear Usagi-sama's reasoning, and would not believe an apology. Homura joined his brother to bring their mother down. The two did not understand the issue with the Otsutsuki, and could care less at this moment. In desperation, Usagi-sama merged with the god tree. Something not done before. She couldn't control the power. Her sanity slipped and shattered since the chakra influx was too intense. Naruto slightly grabbed his head, as if experiencing it himself through his mother's memory. When she completely merged, she became the Jubi, the ten-tailed beast. Gasps were heard all around, but Naruto wasn't finished. The two brothers, thinking they were merely defeating a monster, ripped the chakra from the Jubi and put it into Hagoromo. They then sealed Usagi-sama's body separately using the planet's energy. The seal drew in so much earth, it rose into the sky and became the moon. A silent prison for Usagi-sama. Broken. Alone. Naruto heard tears in his mindscape. Hagoromo Otsutsuki held onto this chakra for the rest of his life. Becoming what you know as the Sage of Six Paths. At the end of his life, to prevent the Jubi, and unknowingly his mother, from living again, he split the chakra into 9 beasts. Your Biju. Homura decided to move to the moon, leaving behind offspring on the planet. Those offspring became the Hyuga. Hagoromo's descendants broke into 2 houses, based on what power they received from him. Senju, the body, and Uchiha, the eyes and spirit. Asura and Indra respectively. That is why the Otsutsuki disappeared. Everyone sat in silence for a few minutes digesting this information. Kaharu nodded. Thank you, that story is hard to believe, but I believe it because you did not paint your family in a positive light as you very well could have. But that does not explain how you and Otsutsuki are here. Is Usagi-sama your mother, or are you another foreigner from beyond? Naruto nodded, glad he was being met with some skepticism. He liked talking to these people more than the Hyuga Council. That brings me into the equation. First, I am what you would call a Jinchuriki, but not so at the same time. Another round of gasps from the peanut gallery. It was Hiruzen, however. That narrowed his eyes. What do you mean you are, but you aren't? Someone summoned Usagi-sama's body near the 9 tails during the night of the attack. Naruto could swear if these people breath any harder, they'll pass out. I was born that night, and my birth father tried to seal the 9 tails inside of my baby body, but Usagi-hime's sanity started to kick in after she was halfway finished eating the fox. She then marked me and entered into my body with the 9 tails. Wait, your birth father tried to seal the Kyuubi into you. Your birth father is Minato Namikaze. Kaharu was floored. If that was the yellow-haired man, then yes. Naruto waved his hand dismissively, searching for these specific memories. The next thing to happen was Usagi-sama finishing the Kyuubi, absorbing the seal that was placed on me, and then Naruto furrowed his tiny eyebrows. You were going to take my body. We are gonna talk about this later, you understand. Naruto tried to be stern with Kaguya, but she simply giggled in return. She was going to reincarnate through my body, but found that I harbored a reincarnated soul from Asura, Hagoromo's son. She then felt bad about what she was doing. Remembering her love for her family, she allowed the reincarnation to continue until I was genetically 100% Otsutsuki, making me much more pure than both of Hagoromo and Homura. At that point, she stopped and allowed me to be my own person. Naruto wasn't intending to, but he didn't really want to talk about himself, so he tried skimming the facts. It would be fair to say I was Lord Fourth's son. I am no longer. I house my now genetic mother, who is also the Jubi, but it's more fair to say we have a symbiotic relationship until I can free her. There is no seal holding her in me. And even if I remove the mark she gave me, which I have, it wouldn't do anything. She will eventually be able to come out if all goes well, so we can hold off any relatives that try and visit. The third Hokage thought for a second. That's quite a heavy burden. This is a new layer of politics and potential war that we wouldn't have known about without this meeting today. Naruto nodded. It is my burden to bear. But I thank you for your understanding. And what is the rabbit goddess's intention with humanity, now that all of this has happened? Danzo narrowed his eye. Naruto looked down. I will be honest. She is not a fan of humans anymore. It's true that Hagoromo and Homura purposely did not mention her, but she spent many years not only as the guardian of the tree, Oot is the reason humanity has chakra and can live and die freely after so many years. She is disappointed that the world has forgotten her. She is not blind to the atrocities she performed in the name of peace. But it was not the first time or the last time leaders have made that heavy decision. To sacrifice the few to save the many. Isn't that what shinobi do for their village? Danzo didn't even hesitate. Of course, we are shinobi. We will endure. But that does not guarantee her cooperation. Naruto nodded to that. She still looks to this planet as a home, and a refuge away from the monstrous ways of the other Otsutsuki. She has told me she will help protect this planet as it is my birthplace, but it is my training if I participate in your worldly affairs. Shikaku spoke up. You saw it. You would not answer anything personal about your mother, yet you told us her life story. Why can't you disclose her name? That was not personal. I am giving you your history back that was forgotten to time. The origin of chakra, unblemished yet imperfect as it was, not tainted by potential lies told by the Sage of Six Paths. Naruto's face then went stern. You do not have my mother's name because you don't know what it means to know it. It would tie me indefinitely to this village as the name will spread. It would make you a superpower over the rest of the elemental continent and give you my undivided support in your dealings, war or otherwise. But with that boon, a bane. Any Otsutsuki dwelling in the shadows or arriving will come here first. Konoha will be the #1 target on this planet with not only your enemies, but our enemies. I will outlive all of you and your children's children if I do not fall in battle. I will have unimaginable sway in this village, making my voice as a second Hokage from the shadows. My mother is my daimyo. Can you and your descendants bear this burden? Shikaku gulped and looked towards Hiruzen, whose face turned cold. That is indeed a lot of power behind a name. This is obviously something that would need to be discussed amongst ourselves for quite some time, but it must be considered if we will be under the attack of a celestial superpower. We would perish all the same if they are as strong as you make them seem, regardless of our affiliation with you. Danzo firmed his gaze. We should take this deal. If it means that we would be strong enough to put down other villages and stand against these other Otsutsuki, we should take a lesson from the rabbit goddess and make the necessary sacrifice. This declaration made all but Aishi wriggle uncomfortably in their seats. Hiruzen looked around the room, but saw no true objection to Danzo's words. That was the most disturbing thing to him, but he too understood. Naruto, if you would, please tell us the benefits and responsibilities of knowing the rabbit goddess's name. This caught the boy by surprise, but he bowed and began. You will receive my unconditional support in your wars, shinobi missions, and politics should you require it. Your village will become the home of the Otsutsuki clan and, since I am currently the heir of the Hyuga clan, the Hyuga will become a single branch family. The caged bird seal will personally be removed by me and the main and branch structure of the Hyuga will vanish, as all are considered the same blood purity compared to the Otsutsuki. This is a boon for the current branch members and also agreed upon by Hiyashi-san and Hinata-san. Konohagakure will gain the benefit of having the 10 tails, Jinchuriki, of which I can show a demonstration for verification. But only briefly if my mother Aloshi says she'd like to stretch so she is willing. The council sweated, but Hiruzen still beckoned him to continue. My offspring, with my betrothed will also be somewhat similar to Hagoromo and Homura, half Otsutsuki. This will be what you would consider the greatest boon that is visible to you. Hiruzen and the elders all went wide-eyed before the Hokage spoke. Konoha would have its own Sage of Six Paths. Indeed, and the Sharingan, and hence the Uchiha will be born again. The Senju would also be reset. That would make the titles of last Uchiha for Sasuke-san and last Senju for Tsunade no longer an issue, as the clans would be reborn anew. The entire council all looked in awe at this revelation. Excuse me, Naruto, but you do not have the Sharingan. How will your descendants develop it? Koharu asked. That brings me to Konoha's responsibilities. Everyone tensed. You would be responsible for putting me into contact with all known Jinchuriki. I will not kill them, but I will siphon some chakra from each tailed beast. This will restore my mother to her full strength as the Jubi. I will eventually seek them out on my own. But this would help me not use less drastic measures. Danzo smirked. This is a small price to pay and I will send Root out immediately to find them. Hiruzen, still stern-faced, asked another question. And how does this relate to the Sharingan and the new Uchiha? Naruto slightly smirked in response. My mother is the 10 tails. One fused with the god tree. She did not say why or how. But with the power of each tailed beast, she can produce another chakra fruit as long as I meditate and absorb the planet's nature energy for a while. I have been absorbing nature chakras since I was 4 at her behest. And should have enough by the time I've come into contact with all the tailed beasts. Once I have eaten it, my Rinne-Sharingan will awaken as a third eye. This will allow me to pass the Rinnegan. And in turn the Sharingan its weaker form down to my offspring. If my child has only one child of their own instead of 2, then the next offspring will possess the Rinnegan as well. Koharu absorbed this new knowledge. Please entertain my morbid curiosity, but what would happen if a human ate the chakra fruit? Without missing a beat, Naruto replied. Your body would be RW helmed with the chakra of the planet and its people. Then your chakra coils would instantly disintegrate and you would explode. And that would be just from touching the juice, let alone taking a bite. Danzo's plan to steal the fruit died as fast as it came. So we would be turning you into a god. Naruto smiled sweetly and looked at Danzo. Your god. I would be at your disposal. I will conquer nations for you if you can justify it to me. In fact, Shimura-san, I would already be willing to grant you one favor that doesn't harm Konoha, there would be a price though. Danzo gripped his cane. And price would I pay? My mother says I should take your right arm in its entirety. It would be painless and I can eventually provide you with another. You can keep the other thing as well as a token of good faith. My eyes see all. Shimura-san. Much more than what that can do. Danzo gripped his cane even harder. A favor of a future god in return for my arm, and he clearly alluded that I can keep Shisui's eye. Are you threatening me, boy? Danzo growled. Nonsense, you know I am not. You can turn it down, just know I can use the yin and yang in that arm of yours. I won't even leave proof of what it is. If that is what you are cautious over. Naruto waved dismissively. Hiruzen spoke. What are you talking about? Shimura-san's resolve. Whether he truly means that he will sacrifice for the village or not. Danzo clenched again as Naruto continued. You can answer after the council decides on their own proposal, I am not an impatient man. Danzo was trapped, regardless of how he felt. The answer was already made for me, it seems. Damn brat, I wouldn't even be able to leave this room without questions about my arm now, anyways. He knew what he was doing. Naruto then turned back to Hiruzen. Would the council like to discuss this price for knowing my mother's name? Hiruzen looked around. Are there any questions, first? Tsume leaned forward. Will the Hyuga gain more status than they already have? Naruto shook her head. The clan power dynamic among you will not change. The only thing that will change is the branch house sharing the same status as the main house, standing as one clan not divided. For reassurance to the elders and current main branch, if any eyes are stolen after the removal of the caged bird seal, I will sense them and kill them. Dojutsu Bellow. NGING to Konoha will remain in Konoha unless a member has moved out of the village. Hiyashi nodded at this. That would stop Kumo, Shikaku thought. What would be the status of the Otsutsuki clan? Kaharu asked. We would live among the Hyuga, as it is easier to hide in plain sight. There is no need to terrify or alert the villagers of a new compound and risk causing unrest. They may continue to think that the Otsutsuki are relatives to the Hyuga. Plus, I am rather fond of them, living with them for so long. Naruto smiled and Kaharu nodded. Will the rabbit goddess have her own demands, in addition to yours? The Aburame clan head asked. I would be delighted if the humans stayed away from me when I am free. In fact, I'd rather not be around anyone other than my precious son. Fufufufu, Kaguya spoke in Naruto's mind. You have a serious complex, are you aware of this? Naruto blankly asked to his mother. Fufufu, what can I say? You're a perfect male version of me. If I can't love that, I might as well have stayed mindless. I'll have you eventually, it is inevitable. Naruto blushed and shook away his mother's words. What the hell is wrong with this woman? She only asks that she isn't bothered. And she will keep to herself. She has had enough of worldly affairs for the foreseeable future. Naruto said what a non-insane Kaguya would have replied with. How soon would you become a military asset? Danzo asked. Naruto raised a small eyebrow. On what scale? I did just become a genin, but I can still do some things. If we went to war with another village tomorrow, would you be ready to fight? Naruto pondered. Do you care about the innocents? Danzo looked at him. Let's assume that there are no innocents. Then the village would no longer exist as soon as I am in range. However, there is no such thing as complete evil among humans. Only a lack of understanding. As easy as it would be to rain all killing ash bones down on the village, reducing everything living to ash. That would only make the village I call my home to be frowned upon. Even among its own people. Hiruzen smiled at that answer. Sure, it was concerning that he could do something like that, but it also showed that he wasn't going to be a mindless weapon. Are there any more questions that you have? Naruto asked politely. The council still looked nervous, but resolve was settling in them. The Hokage saw this as well. Before we vote, the civilian council is to never know about anything decided today. Are we clear? Hiruzen wore a face that offered no challenge. Everyone nodded their head as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Are there any in opposition to the exchange of learning the rabbit goddess's name? There was some hesitation from the elders and clan heads, but all remained quiet. Since there is no opposition, the council agrees to your terms, Naruto Otsutsuki. Kami save us all if this is the wrong choice. The Hokage thought. I understand. Suddenly, Silver Sea chakra surged around Naruto as he closed his eyes. Suddenly the chakra turned into a pale light blue-green and wrapped around Naruto in a cloak, his form gaining a spectral cyan appearance. Two horns hat-like rabbit ears took shape on top of his head. He opened up his eyes to reveal the Tensagen, the white lotus flower petals dancing in a slow circle. Suddenly, his voice reverberated through the room. I am Naruto Otsutsuki, Herald of the Rabbit. As the representative of the Otsutsuki, Konohagakure is now bound to the fate of the Otsutsuki. As such, the rabbit goddess shall be revealed. Her name, Kaguya Otsutsuki, Rabbit Goddess. Progenitor and all-mother of chakra to this planet. First to merge with the tree. Upon her name and her sons, this village will not disclose the rabbit gods' name in return for the unending protection of this planet's Otsutsuki. Until every soul of our Otsutsuki fade into non-existence, Naruto Otsutsuki and his descendants stand with you. As Naruto's Kra cloak faded and his appearance went back to normal, the rest of the council felt the pressure of the oath made. They could only pray that they didn't sign a death warrant. That's it for today, I will stop here. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you please consider subscribe and make sure to hit that like button, share with your friends, and don't forget to check out my Patreon. Details in description.